Hi, my name is Amrita White and I'm the clerk to the committee. Councillor Callum Nimmo has declared a non-pecuniary interest, therefore, with regards to this application, therefore will not be chairing this evening's meeting. Do members agree to appoint Councillor Jacqueline Daly as the chair for this hearing?
I do.
Sorry, I'm just asking the councillors. Councillor Afghan.
Yeah, hi, Councillor Afzal Khan here. I'm happy with that. Thank you very much.
I will now pass over to Councillor Jacqueline Daly, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amrita. So welcome to tonight's licensing subcommittee meeting. As Amrita said, my name is Councillor Jacqueline Daly and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. The meeting is being broadcast live on the council's YouTube channel. Now, if I lose connection and cannot return, because there's only because we're missing a member, there's only two of us, we will need to adjourn the meeting as we will not be quorate. I'm going to start off by reminding all participants of a few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are speaking. Please keep your camera turned on when you speak at the hearing. And please note that the chat function has been disabled. If you want to add any additional information other than at your allotted time to speak, you have to use the raise the hand function so you're not missed. I also ask that members keep their questions and comments brief and to the point. I'll now move to item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence, of which we have one or none, Amrita, I'm not entirely sure. We have none, but we do have declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? Councillor Afzal Khan, no. Thank you. And Amrita, you've already spoken about Councillor Nimmo's non-pecuniary interest. So straight on, I think, to item 3, Amigos Burgers and Shakes at 352 North End Road, SW61NB.
Councillor, can I just... Sorry, I've just had somebody enter the meeting, and it's somebody called Andrea Marine. I don't have this person on my list. Would Matt be able to confirm?
Yeah, sure, Amrita. I just want to double check then in that case, we can compare this individual against the list of people that did make a representation. So if you bear with me a second.
Thank you, because I haven't sent out
No, that's absolutely fine. No worries. Bear with me just a second. Okay. Okay, would it be possible for the individual in question to specify their address, please?
346C North End Road.
Okay, would you mind saying that slightly more loudly, please? I had a job to hear that, sorry.
346C North End Road.
Okay, and can I get your name, please, sir?
It's like in the Zoom meeting, Andrew Marin.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So I do have you listed as a valid objector, but we don't appear to have received a notification from you that you were looking to attend this hearing. So unfortunately, we don't have that, which is why you're not on Amrita's list. I think it might be helpful at this point, Amrita, if this is and Chair, if this is okay, for Emmanuel to cover that part, because we do have another person who's requested someone else in this hearing to speak on their behalf as well. So would that be okay?
Yes, Chair. Our licensing procedure states that you have to make a valid representation and register in advance to participate in the hearing. And so if you haven't done that, then you can't participate in the hearing. But having understood that you've made a valid representation, your representation should be within the pack. Isn't that correct? And so that will be taken into consideration when the committee makes their decision. But for this hearing, you cannot participate because you have not registered in advance.
Emmanuel, could I please just understand where the errors happened here, please?
So from my understanding, they've made a representation, which is part of the pack, but to be able to speak at this hearing, you also have to register in advance, so that it will be part of Amrita's list of notes that of people attending and appearing, and they have not done that. So because they haven't done that, they won't be able to speak at the hearing.
So this is Mr. Marion did not request to speak.
Yes, he's not requested. He made a valid representation, but he did not request to speak in advance.
Mr. Marion, is that correct?
Yes, it seems to be correct. I missed an email about asking me to confirm 2 days in advance, but I made the representation in writing.
Well, yeah, I'm very sorry. Your representation will be taken into consideration, but as Emmanuel says, there won't be an opportunity to speak. My apologies.
Okay.
Matt, did you say there was a second person?
That's right, Chair. Yeah, so we effectively had another valid objector representor sent us an email shortly before the hearing. It was with reference to a slightly earlier email that would have been in time, but wasn't received by us at the time. It has been sent, but it hasn't been received. So, Emmanuel, would you be able to advise, in the context of someone who was looking to speak, have one of our attendees, Charlotte Dexter, speak on her behalf? Can you also clarify that for me, please?
So are you saying that they made a valid representation? Did they register to speak?
They did register to speak, but the original email was not received. So I've now been resent that email very shortly before the meeting.
I mean, unfortunately, if it wasn't registered, then we cannot accept.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel.
Matt, why would an email not be received if it had been sent? Well, I wonder what circumstances could that happen?
I'm not sure, Councillor. I can definitely tell you, though, I'm quite stringent with all of the emails we receive, and I've been handling the vast majority of all the applications. So if the email was received, it would have been logged. I can assure you of that. So I can't provide an explanation as to why it wasn't received at the time.
Okay, and they were asking for Charlotte Dexter to speak on their behalf.
That's correct, Chair. Yes.
So effectively, that would have meant that Charlotte Dexter would have some extra time, but perhaps there is enough time for this anyway. Let's see how we progress. Thanks, Matt. Is that Charlotte Dexter?
Yeah, I understand the procedure. I do wonder if there are exceptions to this procedure, especially since Andre is new to this procedure and he lives in the building above the premises. So
Charlotte, thank you. As we sort of said, the representation is there, so it has been taken into consideration, and you will be one of the speakers, I understand. So if you'd like to, if that's one of the points that, if he is making the same points that you're intending to make on behalf of other residents, then that will be covered anyway. So if I can move on, we've got a considerable number of speakers this evening. So let me just explain. Bear with me a moment. Actually, I haven't asked everybody who's participating to introduce themselves yet. So let me get to that bit. We should have with them Tanishka Premchandani of Premier Ventures. Do we have Tanishka?
Chair, I think we've got Akshay Kumar instead of Tanishka, who's on the call.
Okay, and that's fine. Matt, that's okay, is it?
Are they registered to speak?
They're speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Just to clarify, Emmanuel, we discussed this sort of very shortly a moment ago before we were talking about the others. I was informed that Tanishka would be speaking today, and that whilst there has been some correspondence with the applicant this afternoon, I wasn't told about the last minute change of person. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. So can I ask Akshay Kumar to very briefly introduce himself, say hello?
Hello everyone, my name is Akshay Kumar and I am representing Amigos Burgers and Chicks today.
Thank you. Matt Tucker, Interim Licensing Policy and Administration Team Leader.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be presenting the item this evening.
Thank you. Neil Gardner.
Good evening, Chair, Present, Licensing Officer.
Thank you. Emmanuel Amponza.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. And then objecting, we have Charlotte Dexter, who's speaking on behalf of herself, and Amanda Fredman, Bryony Eastman, and Lama Hayek.
Good evening, Chair.
Evening. John Spalding, speaking on behalf of himself, Laura Kennedy, Sumitra Berry, Joshua Berry, Antoinette Horn, and Miranda Gilpin.
Good evening, Chair.
Mr. Spalding, could I ask you to switch your camera on?
Well, yes, and this is that's with my camera off. My name appears. I'm not in my regular office. When my name disappears, that's clicking the button to put my camera on. But actually, I'm using someone else's kit, and I'm not at all certain that their camera operates. But like I say, I'm neither at my home and I'm neither at my regular office. So unfortunately, I'm not using my regular computer equipment. Loads of people on the call know me, and I'm certainly nothing to look at. So I'm not sure anyone's going to miss the visuals.
Thank you. Officers, is that okay? Does that? Thank you. Lovely. Jan Prissett.
Hello, I'm Jan Prissett.
Hi, thank you. Jill Hodges Magnelia and Cedric Magnelia.
Not present, Chair.
All right, thank you. Rose Francois. Ms. Francois, you're on mute.
Present.
Thank you. Jasper Davis.
Hi, Present Chair. Speaking on behalf of Ben Coleman MP.
Thank you, Jasper. Okay.
And Chair, you've missed Christian Malisard on the list.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Chair. Christian Malisard.
Very sorry, Mr. Malisard.
No, it's okay. No worries.
Thank you for introducing yourself. So before we consider the application today, may I confirm that in addition to the main agenda, supplementary agenda A, B, C, and D were published on the 6th, 9th, 13th, and today the 14th of October. So just to quickly explain the procedure, we will hear from the licensing officer who will introduce the application, Matt Tucker. Then we hear from the objectors, and then finally we hear from the applicant. Usually, each party will address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes per person that they're representing. So following the presentation by all parties, the committee may ask questions of any party or other person present at this hearing. Except committee members, no party has the right to ask questions of any other party at any time during the hearing. Following the presentation and questioning, each party will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to sum up their case or representation. And the committee will then retire for deliberations. And when we return, I will announce the committee's decision. Now, we have a considerable number of speakers tonight, so I would just ask those people speaking to listen to each other and please avoid repetition. If the point you wish to raise has already been made by another speaker, then kind of move on to your next point. I think that will help everything be a little bit clearer and move more swiftly on. So, first up, can I ask the licensing officer, Matt Tucker, to introduce the application?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone. Yes, so essentially we're here to consider the application in the name of Amigos. So the address is Amigos Burgers and Shakes at 352 North End Road. As members and parties will note, the application was received early August. And following some discussions with the police, there were some alterations of timings. For all the parties concerned, I do need to make a slight correction to the detail at the bottom of section 1.1 with revised to the revised timings. The listing which shows hours open to the public should be listed as Monday to Sunday, 1200 to 0200. So just to clarify, hours open to the public has been revised to, proposed to be revised to Monday to Sunday, 1200 to 0200. As part of the discussion with the police, the applicant agreed a fairly robust operating schedule, which aligns with the slightly altered hours with respect to late night refreshment inside the premises. So in other words, people ordering, sitting down, consuming, and then leaving the premises, compared to the late night refreshment for outdoors, which would effectively be someone coming into the premises, ordering, and taking off the premises. And for the clarity of anyone unsure, the outdoor late night refreshment would include things like deliveries too. It would be fair to say we've received a substantial number of representations on this application, and those are listed in the agenda pack and the associated papers. I think what we do need to highlight is just to cover in respect of section 4.1. We did have to have a discussion with the applicant with respect to listing publicly on delivery, and in the supplementary, one of the last supplementaries supplied, that was also listed, it seems, on Google too. So there has been an element of confusion with respect to that, but my understanding is from the correspondence with the applicant that this was actually a genuine mistake rather than a concerted effort to trade without a license in those times. Speaking of additional supplementaries, we have a substantial number of comments that have been made with respect by some of the representatives with respect to the general scene setting of crime and disorder, etc., and how this may affect matters. There is also, Chair, an additional statement that's been written by Councillor Painter, who regrettably was unable to attend, but we advised her that she would be able to submit a statement in advance, and that's what she's done. So I think at that point, unless members have any particular questions, I'll stop the presentation at that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Matt. Councillor Painter's statement, is that read, or is that just in the pack?
That was submitted to committee services as a supplementary agenda item. I believe Amrita, I'm just double checking with Amrita, I believe it was it's listed under 1, 2, 3. I believe it's the supplementary section C. Is that right, Amrita? It says Councillor Painter additional statement, 12th of October. Is that right?
Okay, lovely. So we just have that as a written representation rather than anybody speaking there.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, no problem, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Matt. First off, can I ask Charlotte Dexter? Now, Charlotte, because you're speaking on behalf of yourself, Amanda Fredman, Bryony Eastman, and Lama Hayak, that would be 5 minutes for each of those objectors, giving you a total of 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much and good evening. All right, I'd like to start actually backwards. So with supplemental D, which I submitted yesterday. This is a screen grab that I took on the 2nd of September, which is on Google Maps, or Google and Google Maps. And the only way that you can put that information into Google is by having an account and inputting the information as a premises. So I'm very concerned that we have, unfortunately, around the North End Road Street Market neighborhood, several premises that seem to, work with their own clock, let's put it that way. And we've talked about this before, and we have to mention it each time at hearings. Papa John's, Popeyes, Chicken Cottage. Morley's has a very interesting one where they just decide short term, so you can't sort of catch them out. But anyway, the point really is to the committee that there is hardly a budget for any kind of enforcement. So there is no one checking in with these premises. And it's very important for the committee to just know that and accept that. The people who are checking in are people, neighbors, people that are working together to come to these hearings, who walk their dogs late at night, for instance. And that's how we have these spot checks, so to say, which on the one hand, it's kind of a neighborly thing to do and to talk to the manager and ask them why they're open and so on. But we want to hope that the committee is very concerned about this. I do not believe that this was an error. It was certainly not a third-party error, as stated in my neighbor's, as stated by to Mr. Tucker. Perhaps the representative tonight can explain things, but I do want to explain further that Mr. Tucker wrote to the applicant on the 29th of August regarding this, because it came up in a representation from the Vanson Place Management Company, who I'm representing tonight, 100 people who live behind St. John's Church in a modern building, dogs and all, who bark when they hear delivery drivers, of course, buzzing by them. They sort of have their own rule within their building that they try not to, order deliveries after about 10 o'clock at night, to be neighborly to one another. So Mr. Tucker wrote to the applicant on the 29th, and you'll note that the applicant got back to him on the 13th of September. That's 2 weeks. That's a long time. And I also noted there was, well, that you can see what was said and especially what was not said. So we had this at a hearing a few weeks ago, or in July, and the same type of thing was happening. So I hope that the committee will take this into consideration. I'm also representing on page 104 of the agenda pack, my neighbor on Britannia Road, who gave a first-hand explanation, so direct evidence of her being almost run over on the pavement in front of her house when these delivery drivers jump up onto the pavement for their speed and to get past whatever they're trying to get past. So I know that the committee has read that as well. In supplemental D, I just wanted to point out, excuse me, that was supplemental D. In supplemental C, I wanted to point out, sorry, the following, excuse me. Sorry, I'm at a hotel somewhere, so I don't have a lot of space. Okay, supplemental D, oh yes, okay, supplemental C, ABC. We included the petition that was being used by councillors going around in mid-July because it speaks specifically to the peace and quiet that our densely populated North End Road neighborhood is. And the facts around that are in the ward profiles, the 2024 H&F ward profiles for Walham Green as well as for Lily. I'm sure the committee has skimmed those a few times now because we've pointed them out a few times. And they describe us as densely populated and very densely, and Lily as almost 100% residential. And it's that residential theme that we're really trying to bring to the core here tonight to the committee. The petition, which you can see on page 20 of supplemental C itself, describes that North End Road needs peace and quiet. It's being promised by the councillors, and that's a reason why the councillors have made representations tonight and have made further statements, because they, or at least Lydia did, because she's at a planning meeting actually tonight. So we believe that when Lydia tells us that the leader of the council wrote this petition, we believe that, and we're grateful to him for having put into words what thousands of residents know and believe, that we need peace and quiet at night. Our children need peace and quiet. And one of the ways to create that peace and quiet is to limit the hours reasonably in this day and age, obviously, so that people can get to sleep, not listen to delivery drivers or the hum of electric bikes or the doorbells or the knocking or the arguments or whatever is going on regarding deliveries. So it's very important to us that you take this petition and the promise of the leader into consideration. You'll also be familiar with the leader's promises on page 3 and 4 of your own licensing policy statement, 2022 to 27, where he emphatically states that longer hours are fine in non-residential areas. Non-residential areas. We contend and support and believe what we read in our profiles for our wards, that we are absolutely 100% residential roads, or 99.9% residential roads. And North End Road itself, Mr. Andre Marin, who can't speak, was confused, as a new person to this country as well, I might add. Yeah. He has a very interesting computer business that he's started up, and he's very successful here. So he's a great addition to our neighborhood. He lives above the premises, basically, that we're talking about tonight. And he has put into his application, his representation, excuse me, which is on page 56 of the agenda pack, the original agenda pack. The committee will skim over that, please, as I just say a few things. He's given very direct evidence, and tonight we're trying to give you very direct evidence, because we know where the whole licensing scheme is going with this Sprint license at the government level, et cetera, licensing changes. So it's all going to be about direct evidence. He's given you direct evidence of things that happen on an almost nightly basis, below his windows when he comes home. His wife, who was recently pregnant, now has a healthy baby, thank goodness. She feels not safe at all, walking inside, outside. He told me personally that, so this is hearsay evidence, he told me personally that he has to, greet her at the door and so on, not just count on her kind of getting around the nuisance that is delivery drivers and the sneering and so on. Others will give similar direct evidence reports to you. So in supplemental C, we went over the petition, the promises of our leader and our councillors, and we've set out quite clearly. I know it's always a bit lengthy when I write it, but I try to give you everything that we feel you need to take these decisions. On pages 21 to 23, we recaptured some of the points that were made on another application in its final decision that just came out on the 7th of October, but we found them very pertinent in that they're very similar and it's the same area. So I hope that you will take that into consideration in a certain way, in that you read all of these full decisions, and that decision was taken with a whole different, now totally different, Madam Daly was probably there, but different councillors are at each hearing. And I noticed that 2 out of 3 were not going to be at this hearing. So I thought it was relevant to just mention these in passing, so to say. Then to Agenda B, what I'd like to do is read now the following from our Member of Parliament, who wrote to all of us, well, to several of us, let's put it that way, on September 22nd. So this was after the September 20th fiasco in the North End Road Street Market neighborhood. in the early hours of the evening, actually, with children from 12 to 15 doing all sorts of things with fireworks, fire guns. It was incredible. Anyway, he wrote to us and he said, "I'm sorry to hear about the appalling disorder in the roads around you." I'm not putting in the name of the road there. The roads around you is from me. Now he continues, "This is wholly unacceptable. I've discussed it with the leader of the council, local councillors, the police, and the law enforcement team. They are determined to work together to address the problem. As a first step, I've arranged a meeting tomorrow for residents with the police, the public protection team of the council, and LET to discuss immediate action to prevent recurrence of Saturday's disorder and to look at related issues." So I did go to that meeting on the 23rd of September in St. John's Church, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee might have when they ask questions specifically about that meeting. After that meeting, I call your attention now to Supplementary Agenda B. We pulled together the public information. None of this is secret information. The public information that was put out about the incident on the 20th, and then the Section 35 dispersal order that Clive Hayes, Inspector Hayes is in charge of the 9 wards of Fulham, the policing of the 9 wards of Fulham. He covers that plus some in Chelsea and Kensington, I believe. So it was he who was at this meeting on the 20th, and it was he who had to take decisions on whether he could pull together enough evidence to force a Section 35 dispersal order for the following weekend, which he did do, and you see that on page 5. And then he included the dispersal zone, which was all of Lily Ward and part of, on page 7, and part of Walham Green Ward. So what that meant was that any youth who were hanging out or bumbling around or whatever they might be doing, or maybe having a good time and being orderly, but those who might be unorderly or might not be, but the police wanted to speak with them, they would have the ability to do that and then ask the children to go home, or they'd show them the map and say, you need to move on now. You can't be hanging out in this dispersal zone for the next 48 hours, which was from 2 p.m. Friday until Sunday at 2 p.m. It was quite successful. There were a few firecrackers. There were a few this and that. There were several kids all over the place, but they were running, looking for other places to go outside of the dispersal zone. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. Again, I'm very familiar with these, and I'm speaking on behalf of Sarah Chambers, who's the chair of the police community ward panel for Walham Green. And so I'm very happy to elucidate or answer questions or try to answer any questions that you have specifically about all of this that is set out and you've seen and skimmed over or read fully, I hope, in Agenda B. And now I will finish with, just a minute, where's my Agenda A? C, sorry, D, Agenda. Oh. I think Agenda A was just something that I have put in, so I'm sorry, I won't read that. So finally, I call your attention, please, to the large agenda pack, the thick agenda pack, to page 106. This is the representation from Sarah Chambers, who, as I said, is the police community volunteer chair of our Walham Green ward panel. I'm on the ward panel as John Scolding and several other members of the neighborhood around here in Fulham Broadway and North End Road up to the Lily Road roundabout. And we meet on a quarterly basis with our local Safer Neighborhood Team, SNT. Simon Brett is our lead. He's a very, very astute guy, very helpful. And we talk about these issues and so on. I will say that we've talked at ward panel meetings for the last eon, at least 3 years, but more intensely the last 18 to 20 months about this increase in crime, disorder, ASB, and so on in the whole North End Road neighborhood and area. And we also need to remember that North End Road, although it's a street market during the day, and there are commercial premises along there during the day, a few bedding shops, more and more takeaways, which we're very concerned about, and we believe that we've come through and over the cumulative effect that these takeaways are now having on us. They become real magnets for kids and people and types, and of course, drugs and everything else. Some of them are even used to order in-house, to go inside and order food, believe it or not. But we're concerned also for the residents like Andre, who can't speak tonight. They live right above these premises, and you'll know, just looking at this picture, that these buildings were built in sort of the 1890s, 1900, 1910. No sound insulation, single pane windows and so on. The whole North End Road was built out over orchards and market gardens, and for a market, for the street market, for those goods out of the vegetables and the fruit. And the idea was that people could live above at night in, as the leader said, peace and quiet. So it's a great picture there on page 106 to give you a better idea of what we're really talking about. And of course, on the corner there is Amigos, and that road there is Charles Road. And our our ward councillor, who isn't here tonight but made a representation, made public at the meeting on the 23rd in St. John's Church that she lives on Charles Road, so I can say that now. And she's overly concerned about all the ASB and everything else that goes on, and also explained that this road is used as sort of a delivery cut through, because when you look at a map, it goes diagonally up to Dawes Road and it misses two lights. So instead of going a bit further down North End Road and then taking a right into Dawes Road, these guys can just zoom up her road. And you can tell that they've tried to make it a bit narrower and so on more recently, but that doesn't do any good, of course, for these delivery bikes. So that's the picture that our ward panel chair wanted you to see, and why all the reasons why it's unsuitable and inappropriate, in her words, to extend hours beyond 2300. The crime statistics are there for you to see. The trend is, unfortunately, it's upwards.
Charlotte, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to warn you, you've got about 1 minute left.
Okay, well, I'm just about done. So the crime stats are up. They're moving further up. Next month, we'll see the crime stats for these awful things that happened only in the last few weeks. So all in all, we'd like to suggest to the committee that there's no evidence, there are no excuses, and there are no explanations from the applicant more recently on issues that were brought to the applicant's attention for there to be longer hours than what is deemed in your own policy as 2300, i.e. not appropriate for residential areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charlotte.
And thank you for the warning. That was very helpful. That was a very helpful step. Thank you. I appreciate
it. John Spalding, you're also speaking on behalf of other residents, yourself, Laura Kennedy, Sumitra Berry, Joshua Berry, Antoinette Horn, and Miranda Gilpin. Each of those representations has 5 minutes, so you have a total of 30 minutes. I just ask you if Charlotte Dexter has covered any points that you were intending to cover. If you could not repeat them, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I will do my best not to take up all 30 minutes and not to be repetitive. I am, however, going to start with something which I hadn't planned to say, but in fact, listening to tonight, I'm going to say it, and I do it at the risk of being the grumpiest and oldest man on the hearing. We started with some technicalities about who can attend and who can't, and who can speak and who can't. We have residents who take a lot of personal time, as do committee members, to take these hearings very sensibly and seriously in an area where they have little or no knowledge. They make a real effort to deal with these things. We have an applicant whose full-time job is running Amigos, and yet we don't have one director of that company here tonight. I'm sure everyone appreciates this, but only directors can bind the company. Only directors can act and speak for the company. Yes, we have a representative. I understand the representative did not make a representation. I don't think he applied to speak. Mr. Tucker very kindly explained the background, for which we're grateful. But it is disappointing, to put it mildly, that applicants don't take this process seriously enough. They don't understand the commitment, and they're not here tonight. There are two directors of the company, and you would have thought, given that we've all had advance notice of this, that in fact one of them could be resident to speak to this application. We have no idea what the authority of Mr. Kumar is, what his role is, what his experience is. Of course, I'm sure he will speak to that. But it strikes me as being an unfortunate process where we bar people who have made a real effort, and we are not perhaps holding the applicants to a similar standard. I say no more on that, other than I think it's highly unfortunate. I represent the Tourney Road Neighbourhood Watch Group. I live about 100 metres away from the site. I've lived there for very, very many years, 2 decades and more. And I have my family there and have done for a long time. I've lived in Fulham for even longer. I represent those on the road and the other people who have asked me to speak because they all feel, and we all believe, that we will be deeply impacted if this application is permitted. Charlotte, I think, very helpfully referred to the fact that this is a residential neighbourhood. We'll come on to that a little bit more, but I won't repeat it. In the pack, it is very helpful, I think, at page 10, which makes it completely clear that takeaways, in terms of terminal hours, when it comes to takeaways, it's for residential areas. Late night hours are, quotes, not considered appropriate. This is not the first application. Councillors will know that we have had many non-policy hours, late night hours applications over the years. This is another one in that vein. Residents on my road strongly believe that the extension of hours beyond those policy hours for residential areas will undermine the licensing objectives in relation to crime and disorder, safety to children, and the prevention of public nuisance. If you were to grant those hours, then let's just put this slightly in context. One, to state the obvious, they are considerably in excess of the time set out in the policy. That seems to me to be black and white here. They're also out of kilter with other takeaway premises in the close vicinity and the neighbourhood, whether we're looking at Wendy's or Papa John's, Greg's, Morley's, KFC. They all have, they don't have the late night hours that this particular applicant is applying for. And in fact, I think it's fair to say that most, if not quite all, other takeaways, none of them have opening hours to 2 o'clock. And I suspect that is because of the policy. I too share a concern which Ms. Dexter averted to about what was seen online, and I think is reproduced at page 83 and discussed at paragraph 4.1 on page 7 of the principal pack. There seems to be some reference to it being a technical oversight. Well, it's not clear to me how did it happen, who was the third party that was responsible for the technical oversight, but hopefully we can put all of that to bed, and hopefully Mr. Kumar will confirm that nobody and no member of staff at Amigos has ever been paid to serve food after 11 p.m. And I think that's probably not an unreasonable question to put. However, turning to the fundamental point here, what this application does, just in line with all the other applications for non-policy hours, is it seeks to test the committee's resolve to stand by its own policy, a policy which is there to protect residents from new and current operators. That policy has been around when this operator turned up on the site. This operator should have no expectation that they would be able to operate during or beyond the hours which are set out in the policy and repeated on page 10 of the pack. It's therefore, at a very high level, a simple and reasonable request, we say, that the committee simply acts consistently with its own hours policy and does not grant any hour beyond 11 o'clock. Yes, no policy is absolute or universal, that must be true, but the council is only able to depart from the policy if it can provide clear, distinct and cogent reasons that go to the core of the reasons for the policy being introduced. The current application is not exceptional, and we'll come back to this later. It doesn't exhibit anything that would justify the extreme departure from policy hours as set out in the policy. The conditions proposed are set out, and I think Mr. Tucker also referred to these, and agreed with the police, are quite frankly nothing unusual. We see them time and time again. They are the standard conditions replicated many times over, and they are nothing more than what a responsible applicant or operator should be signing up to as a bare minimum. It is perhaps slightly alarming that it took the intervention of the police to get these in the first place, but let's not dwell on that. The point is, if you look at those conditions, nothing is proposed that would effectively ensure residents are not disturbed by delivery drivers. I completely agree. I live on a road I agree with what Charlotte said. The roads are cut-throughs and they're used all the time. Nothing would prevent customers of Amigos disturbing residents when they arrive and when they depart from the site, because there are lots of residents. This is a densely residential area. Nothing in the proposal would prevent people who have been enjoying themselves in a bar or a club, hanging around to have food late at night or traveling to the area to partake in a burger. All of this adds to the existing aggregate impact that it has on a neighborhood that is fundamentally residential. And of course, nothing is proposed that would or could prevent people from the antisocial behavior that we all too often witness, whether that is in the form of broken glass and litter, urination, vomiting, and a lot worse. I think it's important to remember here, and I'm going to go to the page 8 of the principal pack, that paragraph 5.4 states that applicants are expected to obtain sufficient information to enable them to demonstrate the steps they propose to take to promote the licensing objectives, and that they understand the layout of the local area and the physical environment, including, and then it lists things like crime and disorder and proximity to residential premises. It goes on to say that applicants are expected to include positive proposals in their application on how they will manage any potential risks. I can't see any information, any demonstration, or any positive proposals in this application. And for that reason, for many others as well, I think it is fundamentally defective. The policy itself goes on to make it clear that considering the impact on local residents is totally relevant. Pages 20 to 21 of the licensing policy states that, and whether they must consider whether there is any adverse impact, what measures will be put in place, and that they will, whether there will be a substantial increase in the adverse impact of these or similar on an adjacent residential area. It's expressly in the policy. It's slap bang in the facts of this this case. So I'm just tapping my timer to make sure I haven't run over my time. This is important. It's obviously important. I don't need to tell councillors this, but I want the applicant to hear it. Deciding this case absolutely on its merits, we have to understand that it's not an isolated decision. It would be wrong to ignore the fact that other operators of licensed premises will look at this decision and possibly act on it if there was to be a decision to grant non-policy hours. Should the application be granted, it may prove incredibly difficult on later applications to even begin to refuse them. It would set, in my view, a dangerous precedent. And not surprisingly, I would say, the recent decisions from 2023 to 25, where in cases where applicants are seeking non-policy hours, have all been rejected. And the most recent in July this year was Casper's, but of course others will remember Wendy's, Popeyes, McDonald's, Morley's, Papa John's. Fishy Delishy applied and then withdrew because I suspect they thought it was too big a mountain to climb. I won't repeat, but Charlotte's very helpful comments on how highly residential both the North End Road is and also the immediate environment. I think it's 18 immediate roads. If you go to Kensington, West Kensington Tube, I think it's 26 roads, 25 of them are residential. Just can't escape the residential nature of the area we are in. I think that there are some obvious features about late night hours and why we are so sensitive. And the obvious one is, of course, unlike the day, there is no ambient background noise. At night, we hear everything in a way that we don't during the day when we have an active street market and a semi-commercial road that is busy and thriving and successful. It is worth referring, I think, to page 63 of the main pack, which sadly reminds us that that Hammersmith and Fulham is the most sleep-disturbed borough. And whilst it is lovely to have a burger at 1:30 in the morning, if you're on a road with 140 residents like myself, with children, where inescapably we cannot have our bedrooms in the back of the house, in virtually every property, they are at the front of the house, then that noise affects everybody. And likewise, we have a policy as far as we can, whereby we try and make sure that people do not order deliveries after a certain hour, simply out of respect for neighbours who are working long shifts in the NHS, some of whom have got 2 jobs because economically things are tough and expensive. They are putting in major shifts. And that is just the nature of the environment. I suspect that is probably true of every road in Fulham and Hammersmith. I can't not mention crime, though Charlotte Dexter did it very well. The police stats are, I think, slightly scary. They're repeated on page 107, and I again, as Charlotte did, commend that representation from Sarah Chambers. We had recently a serious series of events, as we have described, around the 20th September in the area, and then the emergency meeting that took place. What I hope this conveys and illustrates is nothing other than the severity of what is daily life for us. In my particular case, for over 3 years now, my teenage daughter is not allowed to walk home at night from Fulham Broadway Tube, West Kensington Tube, or her local dance class. I will not allow it, because she had a couple of years ago a terrible experience, both from young men, I suspect, near the Clem Attlee estate, and also, unfortunately, from male delivery drivers, of whom we have a huge number park at the end of our road. And that has created a very anxious and a very timid person. And consequently, as a parent, I want to protect her. But it's not just my daughter. My wife doesn't want to go out, and I make sure she doesn't go out after dark, because I don't want her exposed to what has become a daily, almost daily occurrence. And just for the record, the weekend after, the 27th, we had about 20 youths on our road. They shifted from one road, they just went to another. Fortunately, nothing happened, but we had a fairly tense couple of hours. So I don't really like living somewhere where I'm feeling tense and I'm worried about who's sitting on my fence, who's throwing their litter into my garden, who's taking a pee. Okay, that's just not what I signed up for, and I'm sorry to say that, but I'm fairly certain, certainly in relation to the residents on Tournay Road, that they share that view. Importantly, and this is in, I think, Agenda Pack C at page 15, a bit of context to this. Licensing is supposed to look at the 4 critical criteria, particularly in relation to crime and disorder, for 2 reasons. One, it is entitled to look at measures that will prevent, and the other is that it's entitled to look at measures that will deter. And the simple truth is, if you do not have late night institutions open, you will deter people coming to the area. And it is a sad correlation that the behavior we see and witness today takes place because people come into the area late at night. And therefore there is nothing wrong, and indeed licensing law sanctions the fact that you can look to the area and the impact on the area, and it's not just a prevention item, it's a deterrence item as well. I'm sure Chair will be very happy to know that I'm actually making my way to the end of my presentation, and as far as I can tell, I think I am within my time.
Very much are.
It's how do we put this? In our view, it is very likely that should Amigos be granted hours beyond the council's policy hours, then its operation in aggregate with all the other takeaways in the vicinity, how could they not, when more people, customers and delivery drivers would be coming during the 3 hours from 11 till 2, almost a 30% increase in operating hours, by the way, how could they not have an impact on the issues that we've been discussing and which the licensing law correctly directs us to take into account? The policy is there, 1, because the local authority should set expectations, and 2, because residents and operators should understand and have guidance on what to expect. Again, I come back to the point that I don't see anything in the application that addresses the responsibility which is in black and white of each applicant. I just don't see it. I'm happy to be corrected if I've missed it. But that's the whole point of a fair and open playing field for responsible operators who benefit by having a wonderful trading environment, but that comes with some minimum standards of responsibility and minimum responsibility to the community within which it operates. So look, the rabbit is out of the hat. You're not going to be surprised by my conclusion, which is that I'm going to ask you to reject it. I'm going to ask you to reject it because of the densely residential area. It is unfortunately a sign of the times that we have the crime and disorder that we do, and it is unfortunately the case in the last 5 years. The noise, the largest increase in noise nuisance in this neighbourhood is that caused by delivery drivers. In any other part other than a residential area, maybe it would be acceptable. If this was located in some sort of industrial park close to residential areas, then maybe that might, might have some difference. It's just not. It's slap bang in the middle of that of a densely residential, richly residential area. I'm also going to say that I have been hugely impressed both by the two councillors who made representations and also from Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman, as many of you will know, was very active in planning and licensing for many years. He has long history and deep knowledge. And so his words, I think, carry more weight than mine, quite frankly, because I know, having spoken to him, that he just knows more about this and the reality, and he's spoken to a lot of residents over the years. So I do also highly commend those applications. And I also say, look, fair enough, this is a hearing for Mr. Kumar to come and tell us, why and justify why he should have policy hours and justify it in the context of the 4 specific licensing objectives. I don't see it, but hopefully tonight, a little late in the day, he might be able to put some colour on it. And there, I'm going to end. Almost 10 minutes short of my time, so I'm going to generate some goodwill amongst the committee for doing that, even if for no other reason.
Mr. Scolding, thank you very much. And yeah, almost a clear 10 minutes short. Can I ask Jan Prisset to speak next? Jan, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. So I actually live on at 348 Northern Road. So in the same building, or just next door to the applicant. And so I'm going to talk about I guess what I witness in the area, and what I'm concerned about if the opening hours are extended. So what I see in the area, just where I live, is a lot of noise from delivery drivers, from customers, from truck deliveries as well, who deliver all these premises. Also, for our building, we have noise from the exhaust ducts. We also have smells that can get into our homes. And so during the day, it's fine, Northern Road is a lively area. It's noisy. That's normal. There's a market. It's perfectly normal. What I'm concerned about is having this same kind of noises during the night when most people in a residential area try to sleep. So I've got some examples of littering. So just last night, so I came back home at like 9:30 or 8:30 p.m. and just I don't know if I can show you the camera. I don't know. Just in front, it's not focused. Just in front of the gate where I live. So the entrance is on Charles Road, and we have a gate, and a lot of people come and sit in front of our gate and eat their food and leave their rubbish behind. On Sunday at 1 p.m., this is what the street. Can we see? I don't think it's gonna zoom.
Yeah, we can't.
No, we can't see very well.
New evidence.
Okay, fine. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that there's constant occurrences of littering, and it will only get worse if the opening hours are extended. The noise as well is one thing during the day. It's completely different at night. So I'm very concerned of the antisocial behavior or the increase of the antisocial behavior that we could expect if the premises is open later at night. One thing I wanted to mention as well, I think John briefly spoke about that as well, is so we have people sitting in front of the gates. As a man, it's not a huge problem for me. You know, I can go over them, ask them to move. But when I do have female guests who come to visit me, I do always go outside before they arrive to make sure that, you know, the path is clear. And it's something that could only get worse if we have more people coming during the night due to extending opening hours. So for all, I mean, these are just examples of the I guess the daily nuisances that we can witness in the area, and for all these reasons, I object the application and the extension of the opening hours after 11 p.m. I think we all deserve, as residents and you know, children and adults alike, we all deserve to have a quiet and peaceful night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prissett. Can I ask Christian Malissard? Christian, can I ask you to speak next, please? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. So first of all, I'm French. I've been British for the last 29 years, and I have a lot of time in France. And I will make a comment about the parallel with what does happen in Northern Rhone and what did happen in similar situation in France. So, and you heard about the riot and all these things. It's not a dream anymore. It's a reality that police deal every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, everywhere that business has been expanded. First, I've got grown kids now, so I'm an old man, but my kids are living abroad, and 2 of them came this weekend, and they told me, what did happen in Northern Road? It was a lovely place, full of stores and selling vegetable things. And effectively, there's less and less of that street market. It's more and more businesses and fast food and junk food and tattoos and charity shop, but that's going downhill. So do we want Fulham, where I live and I pay my tax, to become Brixton? Or do we look like we want to become Chiswick High Street? If I was the leader, I would probably look at Chiswick High Street as a model, not Brixton, if I may. So I've got 9 observations. Is it closed or is it still open? I run a big business. I know when I close my business, then the office is closed, it's closed. If now my people continue to work and sell stuff, it's not closed, it's still open. I think Amigo had been open between brackets every single night where I come back from meetings late. There are still people inside. Either they're cleaning, cooking, delivery guys. So when they say they close at 23, it's not right. So shall we take evidence with photo every day? I had enough of that. I've done that for the McDonald's story. I think they are never closed at the time they were supposed. They play with the rules. As nobody can enforce the law because you have a staff restriction and nobody will work at 23 p.m., it's quite difficult for you to observe and take evidence. But I think they take advantage of that. 2, I fully agree that this young chap who represents Amigo is not a director nor an investor in the business. I'm very surprised that the leaders of this business are not there. Either they mean they don't give a shit, forget my French, or they believe it's not even needed to come. It's going to go and be improved. So I'm very shocked as a business leader to do that. 3, the last minute change of the person speaking on behalf without Matt being informed, for me is shocking. Either you are in the list and effectively you are quite rigorous with the list, or you're not in the list. But having a guy who came without knowing, showing effectively still in the restaurant with the people around, it looks like non-professional to me. I'm quite shocked as a business entrepreneur. Delivery, most of the business in that industry is delivery by Muppets. They park everywhere, they don't care. Double layer lane, they don't care. On the pavement, they don't care. Just on the left of Amigo, there is a bus stop. Every single day, there's 1 or 2 or 3 mopeds parked before on the pavement, on the double yellow lane, before the bus stop. I don't think it's a civil responsibility to park there. It's offending people taking bus, it slows the traffic, and the traffic on Northern Road is already far enough, to my opinion. The guy driving this scooter on the moped all have L plates. I'm a motorbike owner. After 1 year, you have to pass your license. You cannot be on an L plate forever. So I'm surprised that these guys have no insurance, no MOT. They don't own the bike. It's a very complex scheme. They probably hide their face with a balaclava, showing that they don't want to be caught on the camera. So I know that the police is short in Fulham. You've got 16 officers, no more. And the law enforcement team is not 50 or 72, it's probably more than 50. And they don't work late night because they have families like we all have. So I think the police will never be able to enforce anything on Northern Road, especially if one after one, this business expand the time of opening. I think when we talk about that, the resident, do we need that many burger shop? Honestly, the health of England is a bit of a problem. Just look at the statistic of obesity. Do we really want England to be fed by burgers and shakes? Do you really want that? Is the leader expecting Fulham to be the capital of the obesity in the UK? I think it's a big issue for health. So no, it's not the applicant problem, but it is our society problem. So I talk about CCTV. We have like 2,000 or 3,000 in the borough. It's amazing. I'm amazed to see that on the newsletter of the leader. I know that there is only a few that are watched at the same time by your officer. I don't think there's anyone on Northern Road that are really watched because they are mostly on the town hall or the stations or these things. So will we have all the information to have the police on time when needed, or it will be up to the resident to do the watchdog? And I honestly believe Charlotte and John and other people speaking spend far too much time fighting this licensing business. We have a life. I have a family. I have a business. I have a job in charities. I look like now I'm just doing a hunting for new licensing applicant. This is not my job. It must be your job to take into consideration our needs. Us resident, the licensing must take that into consideration. An applicant should never be applying unless they commit to tick all the box of our request basic foundation. And today,
Christian, thank you very much. That's the 5 minutes up. Thank you. Rose Francois, can I ask you to speak next? And can I please ask you to keep to 5 minutes?
I'll try. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Rose Francois. I'm the co-chair of our Neighbourhood Watch Group, which includes 119 active members and represents those households on our app. We care really deeply about this area, not just as a place we live in, but as a community that we've built together. But this is a densely residential area with housing concentration at 4 times the borough average, and we're very, very worried about where we live and about its downward spiral at the moment. Again, this is a residential area with a high road, the North End Road. It is not a city centre. My written representation is in the agenda pack, but rather than repeat it, I'd like to offer a few examples that illustrate the concerns I've raised. Last weekend, I was walking along the North End Road in the early evening when a delivery driver, masked and dressed in black, suddenly mounted the pavement beside me. No warning, no apology, just a sharp, aggressive maneuver that left me shaken. Sadly, this is a regular occurrence. There is just not enough police around to pick up on this sort of behavior, and as a result, it continues and deteriorates. A few minutes later, outside Popeye, several drivers were loitering. One of them sneered at me as I tried to squeeze past. It was intimidating, and it's not the first time. My daughter also experiences this sort of intimidation. She has regular references about her appearance when she's walking home alone, too, by groups of men. This is terrifying if the group is large and noisy. As co-chair of our Neighbourhood Watch, I regularly hear from neighbours who are worried. A mother told me her children are frightened because the bigger boys intimidate them on the way home from school. They take their money and phones. Some, including my grandson, have had their bikes stolen. This parent, like a few others, are thinking about leaving for a safer space. Another neighbour reported seeing delivery drivers urinating in the front garden. In the mews at the top of our road, urination is now a common occurrence. When the drivers are confronted, they say, with some truth it must be added, they have nowhere else to go. These food outlets are employing people with no facilities. They've got no access to toilets, and our streets are used. Families near the top of the road are concerned about the amount of litter that appears every morning, takeaway wrappers, bottles, and worse. One fine resident has taken it upon himself to do a clear up, and that's appreciated, but it shouldn't have to be necessary. And most distressingly, a mother recently witnessed a drug deal happening in broad daylight right in front of her toddler in a pushchair. Another neighbour reported a live drug deal happening in real time. The police did not even bother to respond. She explained this to me in detail and asked me to share it with those who could do something about it. Fortunately, this is being dealt with now. But the particular area I'm talking about is a known drug spot, and it's a huge source of angst for the residents there, because not only is it used as a urinal, it's also used as an impromptu dining area because it's behind the road. So lots of people go and eat their takeaways there. We have boys masked and dressed in black patrolling the roads here, looking in cars. We have drug dealing by some of the delivery drivers arriving with tiny bags that do not appear to contain any food. And these are not isolated incidents. They reflect a pattern of what is referred to as antisocial behaviour. But we residents are scared. This feels like criminal behaviour, and that is growing too. It's happening here in our community that works so very hard to support one another. With no real protection either, it's super intimidating. We talk, we help each other, we share concerns, and we try to find solutions. And although we live in a global city, we want to live in a peaceful road. This is a historic road, a beautiful area, but it's densely populated. We need the committee's help to protect it. We ask the committee to consider the 4 licensing objectives. Crime and disorder is rising with little enforcement. Public safety is compromised by unmanaged delivery traffic and threatening behaviour. Protection of children from harm is undermined by noise, disruption, and exposure to unsafe environments. And public nuisance is now a daily reality, from sleepless nights to littered mornings to urine up all the walls. Longer hours will not only add to these problems in our poor 18 densely residential roads of North End Road. So please reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose.
Was that clear? Could you hear me?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it was
good.
Very good. Thank you. And exactly to time, quite impressively so.
Oh, thank you.
Could I ask Jasper Davis to speak on behalf of Ben Coleman next? Jasper, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me? Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'd just like to add that Ben recognises that a lot of the points have already been made by residents this evening, Chair, so I'll keep Ben's statement brief, but I won't change the wording. My name is Jasper Davis, and I'm reading this statement on behalf of Ben Coleman, a Member of Parliament for Chelsea and Fulham, and, as many of you know, the former councillor for this area. Good evening, everyone. I apologise for not being able to join this meeting in person due to prior commitments in Parliament. Many residents have got in touch with me to share their deep concerns about the proposed extension of the opening hours of Amigos Burgers and Shakes to 2 a.m. every night, 7 days a week. They tell me they are worried about the potential for this to increase late night noise and antisocial behaviour in the North End Road street market neighbourhood. They worry that another late night venue with more delivery drivers operating into the early hours will further damage the character and peace of their community. There is already a high concentration of licensed premises nearby. Residents want this fact to be taken into account in the committee's decision. They also fear that other venues may seek to get extended licenses if Amigo is approved, leading to even more large gatherings, street activity, and disturbances at night time. Overall, residents are telling me they feel frustrated, that their concerns about the area have not been listened to. They want action to calm their streets, not licensing approvals that could create more problems. While Amigos is not the main source of these problems, I share residents' concerns that extending its hours could add to the cumulative impact of noise, disruption, and pressure on public safety in the area. For these reasons, I urge the committee to reject this application. And sorry, my lights have just gone off there, so I hope they come back on. Thank you.
That's a very dramatic end there, Jesper. I like it. Did you mic drop moment?
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Now, we've had some questions about kind of the disparity between not allowing some residents to speak whilst allowing a representative of the applicant to speak. And I have a little bit more advice on this that I'd just like to kind of share with you. It's thought that although the two residents who were not registered were not allowed to speak, they made written representations which were taken into consideration. And it says, on the other hand, if the applicant is not represented, there will be no one to speak on behalf of the applicant. So it would be in the interest of fairness to allow the applicant's representative to speak. So in the interest of fairness, I'm going to ask the applicant to speak. The applicant has, or the applicant's representative has the same amount of time that was granted to residents in order to put their case across, which after kind of carefully recording it, amounts to 60 minutes.
Hello, hi everyone. So yes, I am the managing director of the company, so I have an authority to speak on behalf. So yeah, as Christian said that this guy has no authority and he has no representation and then has not been allowed to speak. So I have spoke to Matt regarding this, and there was a representation from my side. So yes, and yes, one more thing that there are so many restaurants which are open till late night, and they are allowed. They are doing the business at the late night. We were open since we got this shop in January. We have not done any late night refreshment requests, but we are not doing very well in the business. We are in very much debt. That's why we thought of applying for this license. And there are so many shops who have got the license. So we thought that we might get one and we can run our business maybe. Otherwise, we are in very much debt that we will close very soon. So that was only reason to get this license. And as Emmanuel said that there are issues and littering and all those things happening around. So we have proper sitting in our shop. So from our shop, there is nobody who is going out for the eating. Everyone who says that, okay, we are eating here, they sits in the shops and eat that. Otherwise, they are going with their food to home. So there is nobody who is littering around, in my opinion, from our shop, who is buying from our shop. There is Popeyes who don't have a sitting area. They don't have a toilets or anything. So people move from that shop to outside and they litters, they do urinating, all those things are happening from that side. So you have to consider those points as well. Yes. And also, like, I'm not here to say that okay there are not people who are doing and roaming and doing so much things which shouldn't be done on the high street, but that is not our point. Like we are not attracting people to do that those things. We are just there doing our business. So as someone said that there has been drug deals happening and all those things, so I don't consider that point because we are not telling someone to come there and do some shit job. And as you said that delivery drivers normally comes there, takes the food and goes away. And if they are there for some other reasons, then it is not considerable that okay they will come only at that time. They can come at any time if the shop is open or not open, because they are not for there for the food. They are there for their stuff to do. And also Yen, who lives on top of our next shop, which is Popeyes. So he said that there is so many people living there, and yes, I consider that there were people sitting there, but everyone sits there and nobody is like with the food. Some people are there only and they sit there. So it is not only because there is a business and people are coming. People, if there is a living area and there is a space, everybody will come and sit. I can't say that okay, they are only customers. So this is my point, and I will highly recommend the authorities to please consider our request, as I applied for 2 o'clock, but police officer, I had a meeting with her and she said that okay, we can consider not 2 o'clock but till 1 o'clock, and on weekdays we only considered till 12 o'clock. So I was pretty okay with that point, that okay, I don't want to like make so much of nuisance around. I'm not doing that thing, but like I don't mind to do that. And there are
Thank
shops
you.
which says that Popeyes, they have got they just opened like 4 5 months ago, and they have a license till 1:30 at night, and they are open till that time. And yes, one more guide said that we are open till late nights. So there is the no evidences of that. We have never opened the shop till late night. Yes, we know that we don't have a license. And yes, on Google Maps and all those things, I have cleared with Matt that we are not open till that much time. But all we, as we are a franchise, so we don't uh, uh, manage those online stuffs which manage the time. Google Maps or Uber Eats or Just Eat, whichever applications you see, we don't manage those applications. Those all timings has been managed by our head office. And as I did email also that the person who handles all those things wasn't available. So if I was in a managing position of those things, then I would have done it straight away. But it took me 3 to 4 days to proceed with that thing. So it is not me or not a person who is working in the shop who has done those change of timings, and it was a mistake from the head office who have done that. Yeah, so that is only the points, and I would highly consider that okay, there are shops who are open. There is a Pepe's on High Street which is open till 2 o'clock. There is one chicken shop which has got license till 4 o'clock. There are shops which are open for the late night. So I will consider that okay, at least for the good of our shop, that okay, we can continue our business and we can't close only for those reasons. You can consider our application, and not like a long time. We are not allowing people till only late night. We are allowing them only till 12 o'clock, and only also the online orders which are on till 2 o'clock. But we are not that much big business. We are not doing that much great, so we will not be allowing so many people or those things. So I highly recommend that please approve the application as per police recorded and given the time. That is it. Thank you.
Akshay, thank you very much for your brevity, in fact. Lovely. So we have now come to the part of the meeting where we get to committee questions. So each committee member can ask questions of any party about the application and the issues that are being raised at this hearing in relation to the 4 licensing objectives. So the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Councillor Afzal Khan, would you like to start with questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would. My first question is for Akshay Kumar, and that is that why do you need to serve hot food until 2 a.m., particularly for delivery and collection? And is there demonstrable demand at those times?
Yes, sir. So actually, there is a demand of the food at late night, and our main reason to get that license just because we are not doing great at the regular times right now, and we are struggling to get a business. Right now, we are in very much debt, as I mentioned earlier. So we need to get the license. Otherwise, we are in that much debt that we need to close, and it will not even be a December. We'll close before that. Even right now, we are not open since 5 days. Our shop is closed. There are some issues, so we need to get this.
Are you aware that the council's licensing policy states that takeaways, late night refreshment cannot be open beyond 11 p.m.? And have you thought about why you want to go beyond that policy? What is the service that you are providing to the community that as the council should give you this license? I totally respect and understand that you are under financial pressures, but if everybody was under financial pressures and we allowed them to operate till 5 a.m., that would hardly be the right thing for the community and for the residents.
Yes, so as we are not, I can say that we are providing a food, and we are a halal shop. So actually, we are not doing any alcohol or any stuffs which people can consume and they can be on high. We are doing only a fast food shop, and it is something that we have shop that has a noise cancellation. The noise from our shop doesn't goes out. The music every time is stopped after 11 o'clock if we get the license. So we have put these points in the application that our music will be off, the sound doesn't goes above. There is some policies, our deliveries doesn't come at night, like all the trucks and those things doesn't come at night. We receive all the deliveries at daytime. So yes, we are not making, we are not a shop that makes so much of noise and all those things. And we try to get all the people to get a safe environment around us. We are not here to disturb anyone who is living around. We try to maintain the peace in the area.
Chair, may I ask some further questions?
Yeah, please, Councillor.
Thank you.
Ask away.
A lot of the residents' representatives have raised concerns about the safety of young people in this neighborhood. And I want to know, what is your policy as a business for preventing underage sales or gatherings of young people late at night? And how will you ensure that vulnerable individuals are not exploited or harmed around your shop?
So we have got a highly trained staff, and they know that what is appropriate thing and what is not. So we are trying to get an extra staff if we get a late license application approved. So there will be a person who will be around, so nothing happens to anyone. And as I told you earlier, that we are a halal shop. There is no stuffs which will make people high. There is no alcohol, no cigarettes, nothing is happening in our shop. So there is no underage item in our shop. So whoever comes who is underage, they are okay to get food from our shop. And as I said, that we are trying to get a person who will take the things under control if something happens which shouldn't be happening over there. As someone comes and do some noisy thing or something which shouldn't be done on a public space, then yes, as we are trying to get a person who will control all those things.
Are you committing to employing SIA registered door supervisors during late hours? And how will you, is that what you're committing to do here?
Not actually. There will be a person who will be a staff or a staff of our shop, not a person who is ISA or who is simply a bodyguard over there. But yes, from our shop, who has got skills and all those things that, okay, this shouldn't be done or all those things, then he will be around the sitting area only, not in the kitchen, and he will be noticing all those things. And if something happens, then he is allowed to take the person away from the shop and tell him to move outside.
Well, if it's not an SIA registered security person, then they don't have any authorities. I'm sorry to say, that doesn't assure me in the least. The concern that I'm trying to convey to you is if there is a reason for young people to gather around here, around your shop that late in the hour, and residents have pointed out that drug deals take place over there, different kinds of antisocial behavior takes place, which means we're putting children at risk or young people at risk around that area. How do you respond to that?
So for that reason, my point is very different, that I don't consider that, because if our shop is open or closed, that will not make any changes. If there are people who are coming to do the drug deals or they are there to mischief, then they will come. Like, it is not a reason that one shop is open and that's why everything is happening. That is not the reason. If all the shops will be closed, still there is a space outside and people will come. So I don't consider that as a thing that, okay, if our shop is closed and all those things are not there, then okay, nothing will happen.
Thank you, Akshay, for answering those questions. Chair, if I may ask a few questions of the licensing officers, just
Please
to
do.
confirm. Thank you, Chair. Could I ask one of the licensing officers to respond to Akshay's comment that there are many other restaurants that operate till 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. in that neighborhood? Can you confirm which other restaurants or takeaway services are operating at the moment in that vicinity up until 2 or 4 a.m., like Akshay Kumar pointed out?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Councillor. So just to answer that question, there's two things I would say is I'm just trying to find the information in front of me. With respect to, we would normally publish with respect to, we would normally publish as part of our agenda pack a list of what we would class as neighbouring premises in the immediate vicinity. And I believe those are listed, and pardon me a moment, Councillor, I do apologise. I'm just loading this one up. That would be in Appendix 3, the location map and the neighbouring premises. So it would be fair to say there are a number of premises there with late night refreshment. I'm going through them now for you. Bear with me a second. It would be fair to say in the immediate vicinity, Councillor, there is only one from what I can see, and that is Coat, which is 1 to 7 Jerden Place, London, SW6 1BE, which has late night refreshment from 2300 hours to 0130 hours. Now, just to pick up on the other point that's been made by the applicant, I'm not entirely sure if there are other examples that have been quoted, whether his definition of the local area is slightly wider than ours. I mean, there will be invariably some premises open until later than what is being applied for, but we also have to bear in mind that some of those premises may well have been granted before our latest statement of licensing policy was introduced. So there is a possibility that there are slightly historic licenses that have slightly longer opening hours. Hopefully that covers the point for you.
Thank you, officer. Thank you, officer. So from what you've said, I understand that there are no restaurants or takeaways in the vicinity that are operating those kinds of extended hours. There might be some historical ones, but not since this policy was introduced.
That's correct, Councillor. That's my understanding. Yes.
Thank you so much.
That's right. You're welcome.
Chair, if I have your permission, may I ask a few questions of the residents' representatives?
Please do. Please do.
Thank you. Mr. Spalding, if I may, have you or your residents' groups discussed the issues that you've had with the applicant directly? And if so, what was the outcome?
The short answer to that, thank you, Councillor, for asking, is that I think in my representation, I did say that my email address could be forwarded to the applicant, but I heard nothing from them. And obviously, I assume, but Matt may correct me if I'm wrong, that if an applicant who obviously gets to see the representations relatively early on wants an opportunity, certainly to speak to residents, certainly we've had previous applications in the last 2 or 3 years where an applicant or their representative has reached out to us and has asked and acted properly through someone, Matt Tucker or Lorna, to say, please, I would like to speak to someone. Please, could you give them my details and could they get in touch? And that's how we find out about it. But in this case, there has been no approach from the applicant.
May I ask the same question of Charlotte Dexter? You also mentioned that the applicant's response was a bit late to some of the comments. Have you or your residents that you represent made any contact with their complaints to the applicant, and has the applicant responded to you in any way or form?
Thank you for the question. So Adrian Overton, and therefore also Matt, who's been with us since the beginning of April, March, has made clear to us that because of GDPR, it gets quite convoluted, good or bad, and that we should give the licensing authority an okay for any applicant to contact us. So I have an open policy with Adrian Overton and with Matt that, if the applicant contacts them and says, oh gosh, we've seen this, or we're concerned about that, or we've been thinking about X because we read about Y, or we heard about this, or we read about the police there, we'd like to talk to the residents. They have an open, great. Send an email copying it to me saying, here are Berkeley Road residents' details, phone number even, not just an email. And, there you have it. So open communication. Sometimes we do, so that's one scenario. The second scenario is that we contact the applicant from our side, from Berkeley Road residents' side. That we do sometimes. And in this case, when Amanda of Benson Place Management, 100 residents in the building behind St. John's Church, asked me to represent her, and then I realized that she had seen these opening hours and so on, the screen grabs that you've seen on pages 54, 55, 56, as well as again from Matt when he contacted the applicant later in the agenda pack 121, 122, 23, around there, big Nashville kind of, you'll see them, Nashville it says. I thought, well, good that Matt's contacting them, and we'll hear from them, and you know, etc. So in this case, I didn't take any action, you know, proactively. So it's sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I mean, you yourself, Counselor, have been involved in some of these more recent applications, and you'll know that sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It kind of depends on what we're reading. You know, you kind of read the tea leaves, or you read the situation. So in this case, to answer your question succinctly, I didn't make an attempt myself. I went through the licensing authority because I understood that this was advertising late night refreshment outside of hours that were allowed, i.e. beyond 2300. And therefore, my first point of call was to clarify it with the licensing authority that I was understanding this Google Maps screen grab that I had made, and things that you can only, you know, change on Google Maps as the proprietor of your business, so to say. So I felt that I'd done what I needed to do, and then it was clear that Matt was, you know, waiting for information, and it took 2 weeks for him to hear from the applicant. Is there anything else that I can elucidate there?
No, thank you so much, Charlotte.
Yes.
That does answer my question quite
Okay,
clearly.
thank
So I'm
you.
going to revert back to Akshay. And it seems to
Councillor?
me, sorry,
Councillor,
yes.
could I just ask Matt, who's been asking to speak for a little while, Matt, do you have something to add?
Sure, yes, Councillor. It's on 2 points, really. First of all is I must apologise. Normally at this time of the evening, I would have a pair of glasses in rather than my contacts. So going through the list, there are 2 other premises on that list in Appendix 3 that do have the hours up to 2 a.m. Those are, pardon me, those are listed as Havana, which is 490 to 492 Fulham Road. And we also have, pardon me, we also have Fulham Fried Chicken, which is at 488 Fulham Road. So I wanted to clarify that for you, Councillor. Apologies for that. The other point I would say is that essentially we, and also from what I can gather as well, is Popeyes, which is listed to 1 a.m. So the other thing I would like to make point really about sort of communication with residents. Ultimately, applicants can choose to engage with residents before, during, or after an application is closed. We do, as a matter of policy, always send copies of representations to applicants and say to them, if there's anything you would like us to convey upon receipt of those representations to the representatives, by all means, let us know. We offer that opportunity to every applicant, as I can imagine, as I'm sure you're aware. It's only fair for us to do so. So I just wanted to clarify that point. So we do give the applicant at least one opportunity if they want to engage with residents further once the representations have been received. If they want to engage, we cascade that message through us so we don't compromise data protection. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Afzal Khan.
Thank you so much, Chair. I have a question for Christian. And my question is that many submissions from the residents mention concerns for children and vulnerable people. Could you explain how late night trading, specifically by this place, Amigos, might put them at risk, in your view?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Councillor. I think if you look at the way people come to this arena from Fulham Broadway, they walk through, they pass NatWest, this pedestrian where all the electric bike are, by the way, this is an issue that we haven't mentioned, but there's another one that you could have a look. They all are falling down, but they walk, they pass through this Italian corner and the Vagabond, they arrive at the crossing section in front of that Amigo. And effectively, it's quite scary when you have a group of people looking for burger, waiting, having a smoke outside. It's quite impressive. Even if I'm 6'4", I still believe that a group of people. So sometimes I avoid and I take the other side of the Northern Road, going back to my home. And I think this is a place where gathering at the traffic crossing is quite dangerous. Yeah, I think so. Yes. So I'm one of many who experience teenagers or young adults who say, well, it's not nice to walk all this shop one after one. It's not just one, it's another one with the chicken next one. And then there's this bus stop, which they old Argos, which is closed. It's quite impressive. And then you got the charity shop, and then you got a Paris Road, and then Tonner Road. Yeah, some people find it scary. So it's not a corner where you can easily park scooter, mopeds, bicycle, e-bike, and they are all on the pavement, all on the road, double yellow lane, as I say, and that's not right. Why shall I get a ticket if I park my motorbike like this? And how this guy can park days in and days out and never have any ticket? I'm surprised, honestly. There is two standards for that parking. So I think it's a dangerous corner.
Thank you, Christian. I was hoping to hear more specifically about how children and vulnerable people might be put at risk if this facility is allowed to operate an additional hour and a half.
I thought I'd give you an answer.
No,
I thought that any young person coming at that time of the night probably will not feel secure, and disabled people with their wheelchair, when you have the bicycle, e-bike and scooter parked more or less on the pavement, doesn't help. I don't know, have you been trying on a wheelchair to come there? I mean, I was pushing an old lady this afternoon. It's a gincana to walk on Northern Road with a wheelchair. So yeah, I think it's not easy. Yeah, confirm that.
Thank you so much for that, Christian. Thank you very much for that. I have one other question for Mr. Scalding. If the application was amended to close earlier, let's say at 1 a.m. at a similar time to Popeyes, would that satisfy your concerns, or would your concerns still exist?
Absolutely not. The concern would still exist. It's a non-policy. It's non-policy hours. It is one. Popeyes, there are very few in the area. The policy is clear. It is unfortunate, but there's nothing we can do about that. And as Mr. Tucker alluded to, though it's not relevant to Popeyes, there are many who, through different whether planning or pre-policy regimes, have been able to secure better hours. And that, unfortunately, is part of what we face and the implications of that. And I think Mr. Coleman's representative picked up on that, in that Mr. Coleman stated we are concerned about the knock-on floodgate effect.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Scalding. Chair, I will ask questions at a later stage. Would you like to continue with some of your questions now?
Councillor, thank you very much. Yeah, I would. Can I just start off coming back to the licensing officer? Matt, just be really clear for me. I know it's all in the pack, but could you just be really clear? What are the current operating hours of the establishment now, and what would they be if the extension was granted? And can you please tell me? No, let's start with that question. Sorry. Yeah, go on.
That's fine, Councillor. So the proposed, what the applicant is what we're looking to consider as part of our current, the most up-to-date hours that we have from the premises is listed on the, excuse me, is listed by way of the, is listed by way of the latest Google viewing, which effectively highlights them as operating from midday to 11 p.m. So that period is the period in which, just for everyone's purpose of clarity, that does not require any form of license. It's once we go over 11 p.m. is where you need a late night license. So that's where we currently are at the moment. Just to clarify, following discussions with the police, essentially the hours that you're looking to are, as I've said, at the bottom of section 1.1, subject to the following. So it's a late night refreshment indoors, Sunday to Thursday, 2300 to midnight, and Friday and Saturday, 2300 to 0100 hours. The late night refreshment for outdoors, in other words, consumption outdoors, is Monday to Sunday, 2300 to 0200 hours, and the hours open to the public should read Monday to Sunday, 1200 hours to 0200 hours. So as I said in my introduction, that we needed to make sure that that was corrected for the benefit of yourselves as a panel. So the hours open to the public should read Monday to Sunday, 1200 to 0200. Is that okay?
Thank you. Yeah. So the second part of my question is going back to policy.
Sure.
Can you tell me, the area has been described in a couple of different ways. Can you tell me whether the area is considered to be residential or mixed use or commercial?
Yeah, so we would classify it as a mixed use primarily because the general tipping point in the application of the policy is that there are sections in between the three. Our policy has three different sites, as you've alluded to. Sometimes they tend to fall into one rather than the other, but we have classified that in previous applications. The road, the particular area, so in previous decisions such as McDonald's, as a mixed use area, namely because we have a commercial road and adjacent, we have residential streets adjacent, and there may also be residential dwellings on top of that commercial use. It's not a large scale city centre site, which I believe has been alluded to in other representations that have been made. So we would classify as, generally speaking, a mixed-use area, and that's how we would interpret the area in respect of the policy.
Thank you. So because it's been operating outside without a license, it hasn't needed a license. It's been closing at 11. Then there wouldn't be any prior licensing enforcement issues, would there? So there wouldn't be any enforcement issues over the premises closing late.
Well, in this case, we technically have had to make some enforcement related inquiries, and that's referred to in the pack. So as Charlotte Dexter has indicated, we did receive a note of concern about Deliveroo advertising services from the premises beyond 11 o'clock, which would technically gives the impression that it's trading without a license. We've then received a subsequent comment from Charlotte, which is in the supplementary agenda, that around the same time, this wasn't brought to our attention, it was just the delivery companies, but Google, the Google entry for the premises also appeared to be running in that same way. So as has been alluded to in the pack, we did make contact with the applicant and just said, look, can you just clarify this for us? Because sometimes there are genuine mistakes. These do happen. So we do need to give an applicant or anyone a reasonable opportunity to provide an explanation, and that's what they did. Obviously, from our perspective, we would always, as a licensing authority, in terms of enforcement, we would always, if we find that things, have been, if something untoward has happened or there's a perception of a breach, we would ultimately rely on further reporting from residents, because as has been alluded to, we're not on that street all of the time. And obviously, if there are any other issues, then obviously officers are able to help and assist and investigate that. So based on the two reports that we had, I think it does allude, in my professional judgment, my professional opinion rather, that we've had a case where it's been advertised. Obviously, the applicant has highlighted at this point that they weren't trading. I can't speak to any further evidence that's not been provided to me. So we have raised it with the applicant. At this stage, the listing has been updated both on delivery companies and on Google. So we are in compliance, at least in terms of how it's advertised. So hopefully that covers your question, Councillor. Sorry for the long answer.
No, thank you very much. It was comprehensive. So can I ask then, there have been complaints about the outlet opening later than it should have been. Have there been any other recorded complaints, news logs, police call out associated? Did the police have anything to say? Or could you just talk us through the police's responses to the licensing application?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So to cover the licensing aspect, I can categorically say that we've not received any further licensing related complaints. Otherwise, it would have been dealt with by me as an officer and taken to the applicant's attention. So parking that one for the moment. With regards to noise, we have noted that noise have not made a representation. I would have expected the noise team, if they had significant concerns, to have made a representation, and we've seen examples in other hearings where that's been the case. I think also it would be fair to say that if the police had concerns, they, in their professional judgment, if they had had concerns, they may well have submitted a representation rather than not submitting a representation and agreeing conditions. That's entirely up to them, and unfortunately, I can't speak to their professional workings as to why they may not have represented. But I can only speak to the fact that they haven't represented. But normally, there is a level at which a responsible authority will seek to represent if there have been ongoing issues.
Thanks, Matt. So my last question to you would be about kind of cumulative impact.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that policy and how it might apply here, and and how we can take that into consideration?
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone who's not aware, a local authority can introduce what we call, under the Licensing Act, what we call cumulative impact zones, or CIZs. Essentially, it relies on the assumption that there are too many apples in the cart, and that effectively you create a cumulative impact zone, which creates a situation where, unlike if there is no zone, presumption under the Licensing Act is normally in favour of granting. If you're in a cumulative impact zone, the presumption is reversed. So there's a rebuttable presumption of not granting unless there are reasonable grounds to do so. In this particular case, we don't have any cumulative impact zones as part of our statement of licensing policy. Currently, as part of this statement of licensing policy that you're using as a benchmark. Notwithstanding that, I do understand that residents have commented about the frequency and quantity, and that's where I think sometimes the reference cumulative impact is referred to. But strictly speaking, we do not have any cumulative impact zones in the authority area. So effectively, the concept of cumulative impact as part of a policy directive wouldn't apply in this case, Councillor.
Thanks very much, Matt. Can I ask the applicant? Thank you. Can I ask the applicant or the applicant's representative? Just really going back to some of Councillor Afzal Khan's questions, particularly about young people. And can I ask you how you will prevent unsupervised minors staying past 11 o'clock on the premises?
Sorry, can you please repeat?
How will you make sure, or how will you prevent, or how will you protect unsupervised minors, particularly if they're staying past 11 o'clock, or how would you prevent them staying past 11 o'clock on the premises?
So basically, we can request them that you can't stay here near the shop or in this area, because there are people who can complain about this, and there is people who are sleeping at this time. You have to move from the area. We can only request them, and we'll try to do that from our side till our very best thing we can do. So that is
okay. Lovely.
Yeah.
So what training do staff receive on dispersing groups safely, particularly minors?
Yes, so basically we as from hours which are recorded by the police, that they are okay to give us till 1 o'clock on weekends actually, Friday and Saturday, and on weekdays till 12 o'clock. So till 12 o'clock they will be in the shop. If they are eating in, then there will be no noise, as I told earlier as well, that from our shop the noise doesn't goes out actually, because we have some things, and we don't play music at late night. Then there will be no noise from the shop which goes outside. And if they are moving out, then we will politely tell them that please move out nicely, and don't make too much noise, so that people who are resident around, they don't get disturbed, and nothing happens, and everyone will be safe and sound.
Mr. Kimmel, can I ask my question again? What training do your staff have to be able to disperse groups safely from the premises?
So basically, there can't be a training, but the manager will be there, and he can tell the people to move out and yes, disperse them.
And what training does the manager have, please?
He has got a license for food safety and all the A2 license.
Okay, thank you. The area is currently within an active dispersal zone. Can you tell me how you will operate responsibly within an active dispersal zone?
Yes, so we'll try our best to not make so much of noise and consider all the points which are there from the council and all the authorities, that people are there, but they don't make so much of the nuisance and all those things.
Do you have any other policies regarding being able to operate safely and responsibly within the zone?
So, regarding the policies, we have got a manager who has a license, and we are trying to, if in case we are getting the license, then maybe in future, if we are in a condition of the hiring a professional who can do this job, then for sure we will do that thing.
Thank you. Can I ask you what sort of relationship you currently have with the Safer Neighbourhood team and the law enforcement team?
Sorry?
What relationship or what liaison do you currently have with the Safer Neighbourhood team and the law enforcement team?
So with the law enforcement team and neighborhood team, as in relation, we can't say much, but there are no complaints regarding our shop to them and to the any law enforcement teams. And yes, I can't say much about that.
Okay, thank you. Can you slightly different tack then? Just thinking about delivery partners. We've heard from residents about some of the really significant issues they've been facing. Can you tell me how many delivery partners you do use?
So we have got 3 partners: Uber Eats, Deliveroo, and Just Eat.
Okay, and where do riders wait for orders to be prepared?
Inside the shop.
Is there an area specifically for them inside?
There is no specific area, but when the drivers comes in the shop, then they wait near the till to get their orders. So they don't wait outside.
So can I ask you what arrangements you have to prevent nuisance from delivery drivers at the moment? So to prevent things like idling, of which there is a public space protection order in place, and noise from scooters and things. What's your current policy? How do you currently go about making sure that isn't a nuisance?
So like we actually don't know that who the driver is coming. He can be on the bike, he can be on the e-moped or e-cycle. So next to our shop, there is a parking space if the motorcycle is coming in. So we can tell them that, okay, whenever you are coming next time, you can park in the parking space and not on the front of the shop, which has, as the Christian said, that there is a bus park and there is double yellow line. So we can tell them that not to do that thing, but that is not in our control. But yes, when they comes inside the shop, then yes, there is a space for them. There is a toilet. We always tell people to use them if they want to. And yes, all those, if they are inside the shop, then we can tell them that don't make noise when you go out, when you are coming in. But yeah, we can only tell them, we can't control their actions.
Okay, and then just to my last question, really, Mr. Kumar, just to confirm, if you were granted an extended license, there are no current plans to sort of improve management of delivery drivers or improve dispersal, improve training? Do you have any plans to change your approach or not?
So we will try to change your approach regarding the delivery drivers. I can't say much about them because they are not working with, they are working with Uber Eats. Actually, that is a platform, and they are not our personal drivers. So we can't control them actually because every time there can be a new driver. But yes, regarding the shops environment and people who are coming in to eating or takeaway, yes, we can change our approach for those things.
Sorry, I did say that was my last question, but one last question, and I was going to ask the objectors to just clarify this for me, but I think I've heard it a couple of times now, so I will just put it to you. Can you tell me a little bit more about how the premises have been staying open past 11 o'clock, and what was the confusion there, and what was happening? And perhaps you could also just let us know about your your post closing cleaning schedule and how that works.
Yeah, so normally we close at 11 right now, 11 o'clock. And if there was some stuff left, then it can be 11:10, but not more than that. We actually close at 11 by any chance. And when we are closing, then we start closing at 10 o'clock. So by 11 o'clock, we finish the closing. Yes, there from 10 to 11, there will be a serving area and people work there. And yes, we serve till 11. But at 10:45, we stop taking orders. So we try to make it clear that, okay, we close the shop at 11. And yes, there was some issues with the head office that they changed the hours as there are 25 franchises something from the of Amigos. So they try to get the license from other shops, and at that point of time, the person who is managing those things, he changed the timings of our shop as well. And I didn't knew that when Matt emailed me regarding this. Only then I got to know that the timings has been changed. So I told him at that time only that, okay, we are not uh, doing any tradings at after 11 o'clock actually, but there can be some mistakes. And I in my convenient time and possibly the best time, I tried to contact the person, and I told him to change the timings, but he wasn't available. So it took, I think, around 4 5 days to complete that job. But yes, I
Mr.
contacted
Kumar,
Matt
I wasn't
again regarding this.
sorry, just to be clear, I wasn't asking so much about the timings that have been published on online on various sites. I was really specifically asking you about the witness or the witnesses that have spoken about people being sat down and eating food and carrying on business on the premises after 11 o'clock.
No, after 11 o'clock, no. There is no one who is eating inside the shop for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to come back round. Actually, can I ask Jan Prisset? Jan, are you still on the call?
Yes, yeah.
Jan, hi there. Thank you. You were talking about like some of the things that you've witnessed, delivery drivers and the noise, littering. Can you tell me what time do the problems typically start there?
Well, it's there's I think the noise is constant. So it's not like there's a time. I mean, it's not like there's a time at which it starts. There's littering and noise constantly, which I said is perfectly normal and fine during the day.
So can I ask you, have you observed sort of disorder outside Amigos, outside the premises specifically, or is it just generally in the area?
So there's so the area is quite a lively area, and outside Amigos specifically, I've seen littering. I haven't seen large groups gathering outside Amigos so far. So it's mostly littering, and for us in this building, the noise of the vents, the big vents at the back of the building.
And what time do those vents stay on till? How long after the premises is closed do they stay on for?
It's hard to tell, yeah. I'm usually up until 11 p.m. so I try to go to bed at that time. It varies depending on the wind, it depends. I can't really tell exactly at what time they're being switched off.
Okay, thank you very much. And could I ask Mr. Scolding? I think that you were telling us about food being served. I think now I wrote down, and maybe I made a mistake here. Did I make a mistake writing down food was served beyond 11:30?
I think that might have and that might have been Christian, but I'm not on the late night occasion. I have on a couple of occasions in the past, though I wish I'd now taken photographs of them, walked my dog late at night and thought the premises were open, but I didn't take a record of that, and I couldn't confirm the time, though it would have been pretty late. I thought possibly Christian had said that he comes back from meetings, etc., relatively late, and on a number of occasions had seen the premises used and open, but I don't wish to put words in Christian's mouth.
Thank you, and apologies. So, Mr. Malissard, could you please confirm?
Yeah, well, I don't work for the FBI, so I'm not going to have like a list of days and times and photo. I mean, I respect all this business, but yeah, at 11 p.m., if the business is closed, it's definitely not closed. That's for sure. There's people working inside. Or do they do the cleaning? Do they do the last order before the client's daily? There's not always people sitting inside to eat because it's not a big premises, and there is a lot of delivery activity. So I don't believe one second that at 11 p.m. everything is done and dusted. But if I had known that you wanted evidence with photos with my watch, and next time I do that. But honestly, it's a classic in all these things. I just wanted to say something that you asked a question about this security training, and if the guy is the MD of that business, he doesn't even understand the basic question you asked.
Mr. Malissard, I will give you an opportunity to kind of sum up in a minute, and you can bring that in then. But so hold fire. There's Councillor Afzal Khan, do you have any more questions to ask?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have one question for Akshay, one for Jan, and one for Rose, if that's all right. For Mr. Akshay Kumar, if you were granted the license, how much increased business do you expect, and will it be enough to stop Amigos from shutting down, as you said, by December?
Yes, so if I can get a license, then basically I'll get around 300 to 400 pounds of business
per night.
Per day, yes, per night actually, yeah, per night, and yes, that will help us to run a longer time for sure. That will help.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Jan Prasad, you've talked about extractor fan noise and smell, and that obviously affects the quality of the life of the residents who are living close to or above or near this facility. And I just want to know if you can explain to me the kind of noise that you have to hear, and the smell, and if they say that they're closing the restaurant at 11 a.m. and they stop taking the orders at 10:45, and if the license was granted till 2 a.m., that would mean that they would stop taking orders by 1:45. How bad is the extractor fan noise and the smell, and how would it affect you in the summer months when you have to keep your windows open?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. It's a humming noise, and it's also vibrations as well that are spread throughout the building. So, again, during the day, it's so noisy outside. I'm also noisy in my home, so it's okay. But as soon as the night comes and we're trying to sleep, this noise becomes very intense, and the vibrations become very intense. And as was mentioned earlier, Popeyes is open. So I live just on top of Popeyes actually, and next door to Amigos, and Popeyes is open later, and I can hear the noise and the vibration from their exhaust ducts, and so I'm concerned. Having Amigos open late as well would increase that issue. And in terms of the smell, it's true that during the day we can sometimes, and it depends on the wind, but sometimes we can smell it quite intensively. And if I have to open my windows, in the evening or at night, because it's very warm, we had quite a few very warm summers in London the last few years. I wouldn't be able to sleep. So it's either I choose to the heat, or I choose the noise and the smell. So it's a bit of a problem for me and for the other residents around the area.
Thank you so much for that. Then I wanted to ask Rose Francois. Thank you for making your representation. My question to you was about that you mentioned, and it has been mentioned earlier as well, about the neighborhood watch and the role they play in there, and that their last shift ends about 6 p.m. And how do you feel the current police presence and enforcement resources in your neighborhood, are they sufficient to manage all the crime and disorder issues that you're facing at the moment? Can you just expand on that? And that if a license was granted and the hours for all those operations and presence of people was extended till 2 or beyond 2 a.m., how would that affect you? And do you think that there's enough police presence and enforcement resources to manage that?
I don't know about enforcement resources, but I do know that there's not enough police. There's not enough police to deal with things as they are at the moment. Expanding hours is just going to present more problems. The police don't respond when they're called now.
Okay. And there's nothing else that your neighborhood teams can do to mitigate?
How do you mean mitigate? In what way? You mean police the street ourselves?
No, but I'm just saying that the crime and disorder that has been mentioned, and I think earlier Charlotte Dexter also mentioned that the crime stats are going up in the area.
They are.
How do you think they're going to be impacted if just another business gets a license to operate for longer?
But it isn't just another business, is it? If this one gets it, I'm sure there'll be more. The unfortunate thing I've lived here 25 years. I've seen it go from a road, and it isn't a city centre. This is a high road between lots of residential roads that has changed over the years. Excuse me. There are just too. I fear that we're going to travel down the same route as Earl's Court, because that's where I think we're going. There are too many fast food restaurants, honestly. In the current block that Popeyes and Amigos are in, we've got Popeyes on the corner, then we've got Amigos, then we've got a charity shop, Then we've got what is it? A tattoo shop, and then we've got another food shop opening, and then we've got Ryman's. There's a huge overrepresentation of foods, fast foods, barber shops, nail bars. I've said the barber shops, shops where you, and masses of charity shops. I don't know what the answer is, I'll be honest with you, but I think just giving licenses like this is really having a massive impact, more than you can imagine. People are keeping very, very quiet, but they're very, very angry about all of this at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Rose. I think what you're trying to say is that it's not a matter of the hours of operation. It's about how many restaurants are open and they're competing with each other, and perhaps that's what's affecting their business. But let me not try to paraphrase what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to say that giving a license to the way things are going at the moment, I just feel, I'm not an expert, I'm just a Commonwealth Gordon resident. But I can see this pattern, you know, where there are more and more of these fast food places opening. And since COVID, there's been an exponential rise in the number of these bikes and motorcycles. It's a hazard sometimes to walk along the North End Road. And then you've got, forgive me for saying this, but you've also got a type of people that come and visit that come from outside of the community, behave very, very badly. And when the police are called, you know, nothing happens. It also attracts people with mental health issues. Sorry, I'm probably rambling a bit. I'm just trying to give you a picture of the reality on the ground for us. It's not fair to us residents to be dealing with urine up the wall. And worse, I haven't mentioned that, and worse, it's not fair that you can't walk up the street without playing dodge like a dodgem car, trying to get past people. It's an unfair situation. I'm sorry, I'm probably not very good at explaining this, but I hope you've got these sort of messages that I'm trying to convey.
No, thank you, Rose. Thank you very much. And with the chair's permission, I just want to thank all the people who have made an effort to come and make these representations here today and take all this time out. I really do appreciate you standing up for your community. Chair, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. I would just like, before we kind of move on to summing up, can I just ask the committee's legal advisor, Emmanuel, can you just tell me how members of the committee should weigh cumulative impact evidence, given that we don't have a cumulative impact zone and it's not part of the policy? And can you also tell me what is a test for proportionality legally when deciding to refuse versus grant with conditions an application like this? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As we do not have any cumulative policy in the area, you cannot take it into consideration. What you can take in is the impact as described by the residents when taking your considerations into account. So you're taking into account the impact that's going to be on residents, but you cannot take into account the fact that there's no cumulative impact, which means that there's a refusal. If there was a cumulative impact, then there will be a refusal aspect to the application. But since there isn't, you have to take into account the 4 licensing objectives and ensure that the representations made are in line with that. In relation to your second point, what was the second point you raised?
I was asking you if you could advise for a test for proportionality for members when deciding whether to grant with conditions or to refuse?
There is no specific test of proportionality. The test is the promotion of the licensing objective. So what you're basing your decision on is the representations made by the residents, and also taking into the policy what the hours that are currently in place. And then what you're looking at is also the applicant's application and whether the residents' concerns are sufficient enough to deny the application on the basis that it will not, it will harm the promotion of the licensing objectives. So if you believe that the residents' representations will harm the promotion of the licensing objectives, then you will have the inclination or you have the ability to reject the application. However, if you believe that the application is strong enough based on the fact that the conditions have been agreed and the hours as agreed with the police are sufficient to promote licensed objective, then you're inclined to grant the application. However, if you reject the application, you have to give specific reasons as to why you're rejecting it. And so you have to ensure that what the residents have said, you've understood and you're able to clearly identify the issues that would result in the harming of the promotion of the licensing objectives.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Mr. Malisard, I can't actually come to you. There's no mechanism for a resident to be able to ask a question. It's only the cabinet members. I'm so sorry, but you will get your time to sum up. Councillor Afzal Khan.
Just one last question of Mr. Tucker, which is, have any of the responsible authorities made any representations that I might have missed out? Could you just confirm one more time for me which, if any, responsible authorities have made representations?
We've received no representations from responsible authorities, Councillor Chair.
Normally, who would we be expecting something from?
So normally, if responsible authorities would represent, normally you may have the police, the environmental health, our public safety team. Those are normally the responsible authorities that would mainly in relation to the licensing objectives. Sometimes the fire brigade have been known to make representations, but those are quite rare. In this case, we have 46 residential objectors, Councillor and Chair, and essentially those, and we have a responsible authority in communication with the applicant, but that's purely to agree conditions, and that happened as part of the consultation period.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Can I now ask all the parties to sum up as briefly as possible? And I'm going to go in the following order. First of all, the licensing officer, followed by the objectors, and then the applicant. And I'll be giving you the amount of time that you've got to speak. Matt, could you please sum up?
Sure, thank you, Chair. I have nothing further to add in terms of the application, as a lot of the ground has been covered. Essentially, we are dealing in this case, as has been alluded by Councillor Afzal Khan, about the fact that we do have residential objectors in the main, plus 3 elected members and their respective capacities. We're not dealing with representations from responsible authorities, but essentially it's entirely up to you as a subcommittee to decide whether, based on what you've seen prior to this meeting and heard at this meeting, whether it should be granted or not. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now to the objectors. Charlotte, can I ask you to speak first? You're speaking on behalf of other residents, and can I ask you to speak for a maximum of 12 minutes, but don't feel you need to fill all 12. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I'd like to sum up first by explaining that the places in the North End Road area that we've been discussing, the street market from, let's say, Fulham Road roundabout, North End Road, up to Lily Road roundabout, those 18 roads that spin off, etc. Matt rightly gave you the answer to the question about which premises have licenses either for late night food and or for alcohol. But I would like to point out to the committee that Cote Brasserie unfortunately folded during COVID. They just couldn't kind of get a delivery concept going quickly enough. And they've been closed ever since. And however, it is possible to keep a license going, as you know, through various agencies and so on. So that license is still current, but Cote Brasserie is not there. Second, Havana, 490 to 92 Fulham Road, across the street from Barclay Road, where I am a resident for the Barclay Road Neighborhood Conservation Area Neighborhood Watch, in short, Barclay Road residents, HAD had a license until 2 a.m. That is still current with Ivana, the proprietor, the freeholder. I'm in touch with the freeholder. Havana turned into various and then the Redback, and we keep asking for it to be updated with the names. But anyway, it was closed last year by the police after 3 illegal raves, and they had to, clean out and clear out the place 3 times in order to force the freeholder to finally close the place. It, at the same time, sort of went bankrupt and so on. So again, the license is there, it's being held, but no one's in the building. And Fulham Fried Chicken, 2 a.m., has what we term, we're open to the proper term, but a historic-ish kind of license many years ago, several years ago, I would say. I didn't look it up right now, but it was given at the time when cumulative impact was being looked at, and one of the solutions at that time, which is no longer a solution, is to have a few places up various roads where people disperse and they can go get some chicken and sort of sober themselves up. That literally was the concept. That concept is no longer. But that premises, i.e. the address, has 2 a.m. 1 a.m. was given to Popeyes only recently, amazingly, even though they had been admitted to until the day, trading illegally. But anyway, they have 1 a.m. So that was Cote is still is closed, but it is 1 a.m. Havana was the Redback, was closed after 3 raves, brought in, the police had to get involved, etc. 2 a.m. still existent. 2 a.m. Fulham Fried Chicken, historic in the sense of give them munchies, and 1 a.m. just recently, and we would say as residents, very unfortunate. And had we had the money, we would have taken that to a review ourselves. So I'd also like to explain to you that there is no police presence in the North End Road street market area, really hardly at any time. Okay, we have 2 safer neighborhood officers for Walham Ward. We had 3, we basically are supposed to have 3, but we only have 2. They're constantly called off to Buckingham Palace for things and for things in Parliament Square and so on. Once in a while, they do get out, they do some walking around, they check things out, but they've been told specifically, and I really want the committee to understand this, they've been told specifically that they are not to be involved in anything about licensing. And this is a reason that we really want to come to one of your annual or semi-annual meetings and explain the dilemmas, because this is a huge problem. The SNT, the Safe Neighborhood Team, it has been told to not be dealing anything with licensing. That means anything with alcohol from any time of the day. And of course, late night refreshment, okay, I mean, they kick off, they rightly so, start early and they kick off at 6 p.m. So they're not involved in late night stuff. I understand that. But, you know, every other shop either sells alcohol or is open with food, etc. So this is a huge gap that we don't understand. Luckily, there is a new person in charge of Met Police licensing in our borough. Her name is also Charlotte Bennett. We are trying to get a meeting with her. I'm sure you've already met with her, and therefore you can continue the conversation with her and ask why this is and why the safer neighborhood teams cannot at least pop in here and there, where we, at our quarterly meetings with them, mention problems. And I'm sure you become aware of problems. So you want the safer neighborhood teams to be involved in those problems, i.e. finding solutions. But so the point is, you know, we have no police, okay? Let's just talk about the evening, late evening, no police. There's no one walking around. The Let are not walking around. The Let will walk around if we contact them and they make a special effort and so on, but they have to call the police, as you know. They have little to no power. What are those PSPOs? Sorry, I put those in supplemental A. They can kind of act on those, but then they have to call the police. They've explained that to us. They explained it to us at the meeting on the 23rd. They need the police. So they're good watchdogs, so to say, but they're not on North End Road all the time. Really, what North End Road is crying out for is constant surveillance. That's what North End Road is crying out for and needs. Now, we're not going to get that. We understand that. So that's why we're coming to you and saying, please, I mean, there's no help. Please, just limit this. Please limit it as much as you can. Okay, I also wanted, John Scolding, I hope will touch on this. I'm trying to see if he's available. John, is John Scolding still around? Excuse me. John? Okay.
I'm still here, Charlotte.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just going to point out that John will be pointing out to you very specifically in your own policy 4, which is your obligation to consider cumulative impact, not as a cumulative impact zone or area, but just cumulative impact. It's all there in policy 4. It's in 3 paragraphs. And I commend it to you highly tonight before you take your decision, because this is really part of the larger consideration of the evening, please. Also, I'd like to say that I wrote in one of my supplementals that at this point, when Ben Coleman was a counselor for Lily and got involved in some of these licensing things and would make a representation for or against an application, he would always sum up very well, and he would speak to the director. It was all, or he'd say it's not a director, but okay, he would make that point actually. And he'd say that he was very disappointed that the applicant really hadn't done much, hadn't planned, hadn't read the policy, wasn't aware of so many things. And he felt that, in this case, I'm going to quote him, he felt it was time that the applicant really sort of educated himself and took pause and took some time out to figure out what's needed in this specific neighborhood and how the applicant can be proactive and be part of the community, et cetera. And then he would ask that the license therefore be rejected because the applicant really hadn't come up to the mark, so to say. That's my words, come up to the mark. So I would ask the same thing tonight. I think we're just in a huge problem with North End Road, and it doesn't need to be this way. It could turn around in a year if we just start limiting the hours and start encouraging. We're going out as residents, as you see, we're taking pictures, we're reporting to the licensing authority. We want to start sending you briefings every few weeks to just understand what's going on in our area. Nothing overly political, nothing, anything, just the facts. I think, so, you know, we're trying to find ways to make sure that everybody is better informed, including the committee themselves, as we think that's something that we can and will do as residents. So we're all in this together. We need to improve North End Road. A way to improve North End Road is to listen to the residents, listen to our councillors, listen to our MP, who really does know best in this case. I have to say, he's been here, he's done it, and he's still involved, thank God. And we ask really that you listen to him tonight. And he has a lot on his plate, a lot going on in licensing now at the government level, big changes to be made very quickly, as I'm sure you're very aware of this sprint thing from industry and so on. And we're very concerned about it. We're very, very concerned. It's all industry-led. It's not resident-led. It's not councillor-led. It's not led by our leader. It's led by, you know, Green King. That's the chairman. They're going to change the world of licensing for the
Charlotte,
better industry.
just 1 minute left now.
In the meantime, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. And could I now ask John Scolding to sum up? John, you're speaking on behalf of residents and you have a total of 18 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I will try and keep this brief. There is a lot to cover. I really want to start by picking up a couple of points made by the applicant. I think at various stages he made certain statements. One, I think, was that people don't eat out, they go home. I'm not quite sure how he knows that, or he can make that statement. I'll certainly say that people have eaten Amigos food on my road, and I've seen the litter to support that. But maybe he has better knowledge than I do. He also talked about things. He said at one point, nothing happens to anyone. Well, if you'd listened to me talk about my daughter, and you listened to Rose and her daughter, and you read the submission at Agenda Pack A on page 17 of an adult who now only will take taxis at certain points of time in the evenings, it's absolutely clear that things have come to a head and have happened to people. And it's amazing that that statement is made, given the evidence in the pack about the crime events that happen in the area. And I just think we have to judge operators by their realistic and honest understanding of what is the reality on their doorstep. And I'm not getting that, if I'm honest, in this case. I think he said at one point, I don't consider children are at risk. He described the position as safe and sound. Well, I'm sorry, I've lived on that road for 25 years and I've lived in Fulham for longer, and that is not what I've seen in the last 10 years. It's unfortunate that that he thinks that that is the correct view and correct description. I think he was asked about what he would do to promote the objectives, and I think the answer he gave was, well, we don't serve alcohol. Well, you know, fair enough. I don't think anyone has beaten the alcohol drum this evening. I'm not sure, again, that is relevant. I'm not sure that he quite appreciates the issue that was being put in front of him. I would just say a couple of things on, I mean, Mr. Tucker very helpfully summed up the position in terms of describing the North End Road. He was absolutely right. The North End Road is mixed use. Okay, the area is not. The area is residential. In Caspers at paragraph 9, there was a clear finding that the premises is located in a residential area. If you look at page 10 of the agenda pack and the statement of licensing policy, what you are referred to are mixed use areas and residential areas. I do not disagree that the road is mixed use, but the area is residential. Factually, the percentage of residential compared to commercial is hugely in favor of residential, and that is recognized by the local authority's own description of the area and its own website. There was a point made about have any responsible authorities objected. Well, quite frankly, in my history of doing these, we get very few responsible authorities objecting in any meaningful way other than the police doing the bare minimum because they are massively under-resourced. So I do not think any weight can be given to that, other than I agree with Mr. Tucker in really extreme cases where there has been, for example, a poor history of compliance, then yes, he's absolutely right. We are very likely to hear then from one or more of the responsible authorities. But in the vast majority of cases, we don't. And the history to these non-policy hours cases is that the vast majority of them are rejected, and certainly the ones in relation to this area. Just to be clear on cumulative impact, because I suspect I have got myself into a knot about this, but I think, again, Mr. Tucker kind of helpfully untied the knot. The policy we have was introduced by the council to mitigate the consequences of the council deciding not to review the cumulative impact policy. Okay, I think he absolutely correctly said that if I remember rightly, he said under the old policy there was a rebuttable presumption, I've written it down, of refusal for applications such as the current one. Well, of course, we don't have the policy, but there is nothing. Indeed, there are some documents, I don't have it here tonight, from Adrian Overton from many years ago, which makes it clear there is nothing. Because you haven't got the policy does not mean that you cannot take or look to or take into account the evidence if in fact there is an aggregate or cumulative or overall. That's a common sense statement, and I think it's what Emmanuel referred to when he has to say you listen to the people who turn up at the hearing and you form a view as to whether there is a theme sufficient to say that there is some sort of aggregate overall impact which falls within a problem within the 4 licensing objectives. And of course, Charlotte is absolutely right. If you go to the policy, you will see plenty of examples of where cumulative impacts are referred to, even though there is not a formal cumulative impact policy. It is absolutely consistent with licensing law, where it is completely well established that when you are looking at things like noise, nuisance, or crime and disorder, the committee should consider facts relevant to be and beyond simply what happens at the premises or the site's direct area, in that direct area immediately outside its front door. You should look at things beyond the premises direct control. Those factors are relevant to licensing decisions, and I think what you've heard this evening en masse is a vast number of concerns about which speak to that and are consistent with the policy and are actually fundamentally underlie the vast majority of decisions that have been made for non-policy hours. We also had a discussion about dispersal. Of course, it's lovely. There's always a policy. We all know that staff are as much from a threat as we residents are. Let's not underestimate it, given the standard of behaviour that happens on the North End Road. There is always a limit, taking into account personal safety, as to how far you will go. If you are lucky enough to disperse people who otherwise normally don't listen to you, then of course, where are you dispersing them to? You're dispersing them to the residential roads all around. Where do they go? They leave the venues and the sites with the CCTV and they come onto roads where there isn't CCTV. And that is just the reality of it. It is underlying what we are saying about increased criminal activity. So it's great to talk about someone leaving my site, but that is just not, that's the tip of the problem. The tip is where do they go and what do they do and what's the environment that has been created in relation to that. So it also follows, obviously the applicant has no control. Once the doors close, the applicant doesn't control what happens there. The applicant doesn't control where the drivers are. I've had everything from 10 to 40 drivers on Tournai Road, and they wait there because there are so many takeaways. They can get to them within seconds, and it's very good for business. but it has an amazing impact late at night because they talk, it's noisy, they rev their engines, they hoot at their mates when they go past. It just changes dynamically, otherwise the fundamental residential area. I thought it was interesting. The applicant did talk when we were talking about open beyond 11 o'clock, and there is quite frankly clearly a very alarming distinction between the evidence of one objector tonight and what was said by the applicant's representative. But he talked about some mistakes, but he didn't go on to say what they were. And we're all human, we can make some mistakes. I got the impression that actually what we've been witnessing is probably a little bit more than some mistakes. What else do I think? Look, the numbers here are huge. 46 representations, 2 councillors, a hugely experienced MP. We're talking about Fulham Island with 32 flats, 80 representatives, My Road with 140 residents, Vanston Place, 42 apartments, another 100 residents. Actually, the overwhelming objection is from a huge number of people. Okay, I just want to put that slightly into perspective. I know there are a much smaller number of people here tonight, and I know that not everyone can get to these things. It is very difficult, and the time that everyone on this call has given up is hugely appreciated. But the level of objection we have to see as being overwhelmingly against. Have I heard a reason justifying why the applicant should be given the non-policy hours? Well, he said himself it's been closed for 5 days, and if I'm being brutally honest, it may well be that there are more fundamental problems with this business than an additional £400 being open for 3 hours into the evening will solve. And I'm afraid that is a harsh reality, and it has been, albeit that the North End Road generally is a very successful trading place, and it has a lot of occupied businesses who continue to do well. But he did say, in fact, I saw it was closed last night at 8:30 when I went home. And so licensing's job, it clearly must take that into account as a factor. I'm not denying that, and we must clearly give the applicant a fair hearing. Licensing can't put right economic issues which we all face, not just applicants, but that's my view. Fundamentally, in order to keep this well within the time, I don't think the policy supports late night opening in residential areas, whether that's to do with noise nuisance, whether that's to do with crime and disorder, or whether that is to do with the unfortunate effects that we have witnessed on our children and young people. It's just a fact. We cannot take decisions divorced from reality. And the experience that has been described very eloquently by a number of objectors here. I would remind you that, Casper's in July. I know it's not binding, but it was the same road. It's 150 metres away. It wanted non-policy hours. It's in the same neighbourhood and the same area. Okay, and it was rejected. And there were good reasons for that. That's not some shock horror story. This is a line of long considered, well thought through decisions in accordance with the policy hours. It recognises, I mentioned earlier, that we are in a residential area and took a decision partly and strongly informed by that. So overall, I think the application is unfortunately not well conceived. I'm not convinced that the applicant is really on top of what's happening in the area and on the road. I think residents are fully right to be concerned about matters at the site or close to the site, and they are, as we have been for a very long time, utterly fearful of the deluge of delivery drivers that keep us awake late at night in essential hours when us and our children and the elderly need sleep. So I am consistently going to ask you to kindly consider this and reject it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scolding. Can I ask Jan Prisset if, Ms. Prisset, would you sum up, please? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. So I came to this hearing concerned about the littering, the noises, the smells that I witness every day during the day. And my concern was that they would be extended also at night until 2 a.m. while I and other residents are trying to sleep. So my concerns are still there, are still here, and I haven't heard from the applicant anything to alleviate those concerns. I'm actually even more concerned because from what I heard from the applicant, he said that he can't really do anything about the delivery drivers because they don't work for him, or he can't do anything about the customers once they're outside the shop. So I'm actually at the end of the hearing even more concerned about the situation if the extension of the opening hours are granted. So he also said that the only reason they applied for an extension was because the business is struggling. Personally, I don't think that if a food business doesn't do very well during the day, I'm not sure opening at night is the solution, especially if it's at the expense of the community and the residents around the shop. So I would kindly ask you to fully reject the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prisset. Mr. Malisard, can I ask you to sum up? You've got 3 minutes.
Yeah. So first of all, advice to the owner of that business. There is a good reason why burger shop don't succeed. It's not by adding new hours that they will. It's probably to change their business model. So I think we should rather help these people to reinvent themselves. But there is far too many business like them to be able to succeed by opening. They already were closed a few months ago, as you probably know. 2, why is the street market dying? That is more important for Northern Road. I think there's definitely a big of effort to do to have more stores on the road. There are less and less and less. So I spoke to most of them that I know for donkey's years, and they say the street is changing. So we'll rather go to other high street than here because the street is changing and the population coming to this fast food industry is not buying fruit and vegetables. So I think there is a collateral damage on the stores market that is linked with the new sort of activity. 3, I think a business which is struggling already is cutting corners. Definitely, they don't invest in training, in education, in staff. I don't know how much they really check the staff qualification and all this, which is probably something to check on your side. But I think they would probably not recruit a safety engineer or a safety, officer and all this. They cut corners, so they definitely will have cheap labor, and I'm worried for that. 4, a teenager in the tube today. I came to that hearing from a meeting, and they swear sitting next to me, they say, well, we go to Northern Road. I say, well, do you know Northern Road? Because I was sitting on the district line. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. There's a ton of fast food and all this. So everybody comes to this for the fast food, and that's going to bring more people. You've got 200,000 people living in Fulham and Hammersmith, as you know. How many officers we have? 16. So make a percentage, and how many are dedicated, like John and Charlotte and Rose mentioned? Not enough. So they come for emergency, but these problems are days in and days out. So I think you can't, I don't know who is living on the arena from you, from the council, but come just have an evening here and you will understand what we say is pretty structured and pretty sounded. Finally, I think that the road doesn't want to look like Uxbridge Road, okay? And I say, oh, Brixton, you need to have a model which is above, moving up. So I hope that the committee will definitely take consideration the goodwill of our residents. We spend full time on that. It's a full-time job. I don't know how many hours Charlotte and John and Rose are spending. It's huge. And they are free, pro bono, just to the benefits of all of us. So I believe that we should be heard, and you should understand our situation to the extreme that hopefully you will make a refusal to the applicant. So thank you very much, Matt, for your effort to make that happening, and all the people from the council to help us. Thank you anyway.
Thank you very much. And finally, on behalf of the objectors, Ms. Francois, could I ask you to speak for a maximum 3 minutes, please?
Yes, I think that the residents are feeling very, very aggrieved and unsupported. We're having to deal with a lot of issues as a result of this, the cumulative effect of all these decisions that are being taken. I think that the longer hours will only add problems to our already troubled streets. So I'm asking you, please, to reject this application. The lack of police on its own would warrant that, because we have such limited protection. The 20th of September was a wake-up call for a lot of us and showed us what the reality could be. And we're just a hair's breadth away from it a lot of the time. It's a tinderbox at times. I'm sorry. So I'm just asking you to reject the application, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of the residents who've turned up and spoken so eloquently today. Mr. Kumar, you have, again, to give you parity with how long the objectors spoke for, the residents spoke for, you have 30 minutes in which to sum up.
Hello. So yes, as Jen said that there is noise and humming coming up and also the vibrations coming up. So probably he is living exactly above the Popeye store. So that can be vibrations and humming of that deer extractor. We are after 2 apartments of that his house, so probably it is not from our side. We have got a extractor which is up and above the roof, so smells can't be there. And we have got filters and all those specific requirements which are required from the council before we start the store. And there are some rules for that, that smells doesn't goes out, and we have all that requirements filled up. So there is no chance that any smell is coming from our side. And yes, there is no complaints from our there are flats above our shop, and there are no complaints regarding this, that there is humming and vibrations to their specific apartments. Also, we are, as Christian said, that stores should be providing specific trainings, and they should know that how to train the people and all those things. So yes, we are a franchise based business. There are specific trainings. After that only we consider the person to work with us, and they are fully trained to work as a kitchen staff. And yes, all those marks has been considered, and only then we take them as our employees. So there is nothing like we just take someone from the roadside and tell them to work for us, and we are paying nothing sort of money. So it is all in the controls and guidelines of the government's guidelines. Yes. So in the case right now, I want to consider my application, because as I told earlier that we are not doing a great business, and it will help us to, if we are getting the late night license, then it will definitely help us. So that is only the point I have, that please consider this application. And as we spoke earlier that about this someone, if we are hiring, then yes, we can consider to get a professional who can work for us next to the door, so that they can uh, uh, like control the people who are coming, and if they are making any noise. So yes, that will be helpful as well. Yeah, that will be it from my side.
Mr. Kumar, thank you very much. So the committee will now retire to take its decision in a separate meeting room. You are very welcome to remain in the meeting to hear the committee's decision. However, this may take some time, and if you don't want to wait, a summary decision will be published on the council's website tomorrow morning. Can I ask members to turn off their video, mute their microphones, and join the private Teams meeting for deliberations? Thank you.
Hello?
Hi. Chair, you can go ahead and read the decision when you're ready.
Thank you. Amrita, are we back on Zoom, on YouTube?
We are, yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Right, is everybody present? The committee has decided the following. We have a summary decision of the licensing subcommittee on the 40th of October, Amigos Burgers and Shakes, 352 North End Road, London SW6 1NB is the premises. The committee has considered an application for a new premises license for the late night refreshment indoors and outdoors under the Licensing Act 2003, or the application. In summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all of the individual circumstances of this case and the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, to reject the whole of the application. A copy of this committee's full decision, including its reasons, will be sent to the parties forthwith. If the applicant or any person who has made a relevant representation is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days from the date of notification of the full decision. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening.